We're live on YouTube. And we're live on Facebook.
Hey!
Say hello to the internet peoples.
Hello!
Hi, internet people.
Welcome to the best homebrewing channel there is.
You press record on you, lad.
No, not
No,
yet.
we'll have a little count in.
Cool.
Yeah. Do I have to say go this time, Owen?
You do a preamble, like a live video preamble
We
for
do.
people that have tuned in super quickly.
That's right.
Super fans.
They
Super fans.
We get the twaddle at the start.
We have a lot of super fans.
It's the premium content for the super fans, right?
I think
They
there are
like
lots
a
of
little
super
warm
fans.
up. They like the warm up. What's I going to say?
Right then. Are we ready with Audacity?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Okay. 3.
Wait.
Two.
I'm not ready.
Hang on.
Who's
starting
doing
this off,
the
anyway?
intro? Who's doing the intro?
Tricky's doing the intro.
It's very
What?
professional.
Am I?
Yeah.
Love it.
Hang on a minute.
I've done so many podcasts, man. Don't worry. It's like
I'll tell you what.
isn't-
I'll
this
do the
isn't
intro,
This
Tricky.
is
Tricky.
not the worst.
Tricky.
It's fine.
I'll do the intro, mate.
You,
Okay?
you just blindsided me slightly there. I was
I'll
not
do it. It's
expecting
cool.
to be- All right.
Right,
cool.
gentlemen, are we all ready now?
I think so.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, click. Right then.
We're there.
Okie dokie. Just a minute.
Just make sure we cut off the bit at the beginning about granny strippers. And
We're all good.
That's what we're doing. That's what I'm saying. Wait a minute. Okay. Welcome to the Hop Edition, ladies and gentlemen. We are in episode 40, and episode 40 is a big one because not only are we joined by a man with a magnificent beard, not you two normal reprobates, Jimmy, who's sitting next to Owen with a magnificent facial fungus. I have to say, welcome, Jimmy. You're looking very well. Nice to meet you, mate.
thanks for having me.
Hey, more than welcome. But we are also joined, ladies and gentlemen, by a gold medal winning brewer, Mr. Owen Puckett,
Cheers.
Mr. Blue Underpants himself. Oh, yes.
There it is.
Soak up the applause, Owen.
An unexpected rosette received today from the Lager Than Life competition.
Absolutely,
My Munich
mate.
colours, which fortuitously I sent out a bottle to all of you three.
We're all
Yep.
drinking it.
So you've all got it in hand.
We've all literally in hand right now.
Happy days.
Oh, I've not poured mine yet. I'm behind the
Oh,
game
jeez.
here.
Come
Isn't
on,
it?
Tricky.
Yeah.
What are you about?
Where's
Jimmy
the
and I-
professionalism? Where's
Jimmy
the
and I are
professionalism?
drinking Jimmy's latest Hellas release, which is coming out next week.
Coming out next week.
Which
You can show the can if you like.
yeah, all right.
Ooh.
Although
Might
might have to do some focus work. Hold on.
Here we go.
Hold on.
Professional. Oh, that don't look bad.
So
De
some
novo.
super cool artwork,
Yeah, it's nice.
as always, from Unity.
Why have you named it after a monitor, Jimmy?
monitor.
I'm sorry,
It's like
that's Lenovo, isn't it? Sorry, my bad. My
There you
bad.
go. No, I named it after some like pretentious Latin stuff.
Oh,
It
well,
seemed like
that's
a
awesome.
fun idea at the time.
that's what we want.
Yeah.
So Owen is
Yeah.
currently the colour of Jimmy's top. We slightly embarrassed him there.
That's all right. I can live with it.
But I have to say, this is a big day for the Hop Edition. We finally got a pro brewer on and we've been chatting to Jimmy now for a good few minutes. And I have to say, some of the stories are fantastic. Some of them
Some of them
are
not.
not for public consumption.
Not to be repeated.
Absolutely. However, welcome, mate. We appreciate you joining us, and hopefully this will be a very alcoholic few hours for you. That's all we'll say.
I imagine. Well, we're actually in the brewery. When Owen said come on, I thought, well, he literally lives around the corner from the brewery, so I thought, let's do it. We're currently sat in our office, and for those watching on the video, you can see our tap room behind us through our office window. And so I thought, yeah, come down and we'll have some beers in the tap room, and make it a little bit more fun than if I was sat in my kitchen.
Yeah, Jimmy used the acronym IRL, which I had to go away and Google.
In real life. Seriously.
I was like, I sat there for 2 minutes, like IRL. No, I'm gonna have to go.
URL.
Oh no! Does that mean you're a kindred spirit, Jimmy? Are you a fellow gamer?
No.
Damn it.
Not at all.
Well, that's killed that
I'll get me coat. I'll fuck off.
We've
Well,
got,
that's fine.
in our tap room, we've got well, during lockdown, to keep me busy, I bought one of those mini SNESes and mini Sega Mega Drives.
Oh,
And
yes.
I say to keep me busy, I was running the brewery from home, and I was way too busy to be doing stupid shit like that. But I was like, I need something to make me feel happy, and so I bought 2 old school games consoles I had when I was a kid, basically.
Yep.
And we've set them up recently in the tap room with like a little HDMI splitter, so you can flick through the 2 consoles. So that's Street Fighter and
Golden Axe.
And Golden Axe, and Streets of
Golden
Rage
Axe.
is like my favourite.
Yeah,
Streets of
it's just Rage.
It's just for the music, man.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that's
good.
sort of
Music on Streets of
continuous
Rage is
like
great.
80s like hair metal music.
Amazing! You can't beat a bit of Streets of Rage. It's
It's
awesome.
all about the 8-bit soundtrack, isn't it?
I've got it on the emulator
Completed
on
it,
the old
mate.
phone.
Nice.
Love it.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
So,
So,
Owen, this
Yeah,
beer,
anyone in Southampton can come and
spot
play
on,
it
mate.
whilst having one of our beers in our tap room for free.
It's a popular choice in the tap room. If it's busy, there's always someone on it.
We've just figured out how we can save games and stuff as well. So we've now got like a legit competition going with the staff now. But I want to try this gold medal winning.
Well, there it
Hammers.
is.
Have you got it there with you? Amazing.
Oh, yeah.
We want to
That's
hear
right.
the professional feedback on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I must
I've not
say,
seen-
it is
I've
very
not seen this
smooth,
score
lovely, sweet, malty flavour to it, and
lovely
super
green
clean,
apple
so,
flavour as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a bit of acetaldehyde on there. To be fair, it scored a 40 out of 50. BJCP.
I'm not getting the green apple personally.
good.
I don't know.
I'm not, no.
I'm not picking that up.
No,
I'm
I
not
mean,
sure if
I
Chris
did-
is on a wind up or if he's actually.
I
being
think he
serious.
is. I think he is because I was talking.
Is it
to
the
you
power
guys.
of suggestion though? Because you said that yourself. You know,
Yeah, it
if
was
you're looking
originally,
for
wasn't
it. Do you
it?
know what I mean?
I think it's actually disappeared.
What does Jimmy think? We'll defer to the professional in the room.
The malt character's great. The water profile's good. Mouthfeel, bitterness level. I've got a little bit of diacetyl on the notes on this one.
Right, edit that out. Yeah.
Hang on a minute.
But,
Now that you mention it,
The power of suggestion.
I know. I'm one of those brewers who's like, I'm really sensitive to
Classic
diacetyl.
judge.
And everyone's like, oh, of course you are. You're a brewer. You think you are, but I genuinely am. But it's extremely pleasant. It's extremely pleasant.
It's an interesting malt bill. If you want to know what the malt bill is, because it's not your conventional Helles malt bill.
Did you try and do any like faux decoction or real decoction on it? or anything like that?
Well, yeah, maybe. What do you reckon might be in there?
Well, you probably if you wanted to recreate a bit of that, then you might have added a tiny bit of melanoid in or something like that.
No, it's not melanoid.
Is it not melanoid
No.
in?
So I'll give you. So I used Bohemian floor malted Pilsner
Yeah.
environment,
Nice.
which I cut with Dingman's Pilsner,
Lovely.
and there are 3 other malts in it.
Really?
Yeah,
A little bit of Vienna, a bit like
a
Munich.
little bit of Miena.
Carrot?
Vienna.
Vienna.
Just
Is there a bit of carapels?
That's the combination of Vienna and Munich.
Yeah,
Miena.
Vienna.
Um,
Trademark
Carapels.
is quick.
there's some carapels in there. Yeah, and there's one last.
It's really, really bright for having some coloured malts in there, though.
And there's one more malt in there.
Yeah.
I think Chris knows what it is because I told him.
Yeah, you did. I can smell it though.
Can you?
It wasn't
There's some Dingman's biscuit malt.
Oh yeah, cool.
Oh, okay.
So so I went a bit avant-garde on the malt bill.
Cool. Well, it's worked for the BJCP judges, even though technically those malts aren't BJCP correct for Munich Helles.
I know, and I probably should have told them.
That's right. I think BJCP is I think BJCP is great for homebrewers because it's something to work towards, but terrible for commercial breweries because it stops creativity. But,
Yeah.
You know, I was a home brewer once.
Don't get Chris started on BJCP.
We hate it.
That'll be an hour of the pod gone.
We'll go on some rant, which we've heard too many times before.
To reiterate a point from the last pod, no.
No.
Chris managed to make me shoot beer out of my nose on the last podcast.
Oh, cool.
There's
There's much more like green apple going on in our Helles.
I didn't pick that up, but
we use a Swiss lager strain which has got a lot more fruity character than like your classic 3470 fine Stefan strain, and so it can often come across like that. And we well pulled it with quite a lot. Well, not a lot of full milling, but we well pulled it at 85 degrees with full milling,
nice.
which is like in recipe. It's not traditional Helles at all, but we called it Helles because it's low bitterness and heavy on the grassy Pilsner malt. You know, it's that Pilsner malt forward thing.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what Helles is all about. That being able to taste that malt, being quite low bitterness, and then the rest is, you know, however traditional you want to go with it. But when we brew pils, we make it about 35 IBU and quite hefty on the late hops.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was lovely. I think, you know, I guess the green apple might have just been sort of hidden amongst the kind of general hop aroma.
I mean, I've like analysed it to buggery like constantly, like through the whole process. So I'm probably picking up things that no one else is ever gonna.
Well, you probably must do, right, in terms of your perception to certain flavours is probably a lot more in depth than most of your people that buy the beer and drink the beer.
Oh, totally, yeah, and that's the right way around as well. I don't really care if the people that drink my beer are really into beer as long as they're enjoying it. You know? I just want people to have a good time, you know. And I mean, we make beer that we want, you know, great beers. Beers are, I'm like waffling now, but I'm not quite getting to a point. So I've like started waffling. I've started a train of thought several times. I've started a train of thought several times and not actually gone down any of the roads yet.
It's fitting in perfectly with our usual sort of level of conversation.
Yeah, you always want something different because taste change as well in the tap room during the day, doesn't it? Would you not find like you might find it's a bit more session during the day? Then some people might come in and want things like the lager, which will then get them an entry into other types of beers that you've got on tap.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think a lot of so our whole focus is making sure that we facilitate what great beer should be. You know, great beer is a luxury product at the end of the day. It's not a necessity. It's not a lot of the old camera boys and stuff are like, well, it should be really cheap because it's
not a necessity.
But it's not. I mean, you don't need. It's not like electricity and food, you know, and water.
I'm just saying.
It's not on mass.
I mean, most of our beers like £4 a can. If I was making it as a necessity, we wouldn't be able to run a business. But you know, it's a great thing that it's lucky enough that people can drink reasonably often, within reason. But we want that bit to be a little bit of escapism, or that little thing that at the end of a hard day at work, you crack a can of one of our beers and you can relax, you know, or you know, you're with a bunch of mates and you have some pints and it helps the little bit of social lubrication that you need for everyone to, you know, to let your guard down a little bit and start enjoying yourself a bit more, and you know, and having something whilst you're doing that that's really delicious, I think helps facilitate those good times better. Because if you're drinking something that's not very good, part of me thinks that you're not going to enjoy your time as much as if you were drinking something, even if you weren't thinking about how good you thought it was, you're just like, yeah, this is a nice drink, and then you stop thinking about it. Whereas, like, if you have and then you start having better conversations with your friends. But if you start drinking a beer and you're like, oh, this is a bit shit, you're not going to have as good like a time. Do you know what I mean? Like, it stands to reason.
It's a bit like going to like a nice restaurant versus going to Mackie D's, right?
Yeah, but you can have a great time in Mackie D's.
Exactly.
Maybe that was a bad
to be fair,
it's all about the context.
My absolute not at all guilty pleasure is when it comes to beer is French stubbies. Those
Yeah,
like
yeah.
2.5%,
Oh,
Pearl.
Saz
The
2.5%,
Pearl.
£5 for an 8-pack.
Yep,
You
full
know,
of
like
Saz.
you don't
Yeah,
put
but
it in your
they're like
fridge, you put it outside your
3%.
back door.
They're
You know.
3%.
Yeah.
You could drink like 12 of them.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
still drive.
The
Everyone's-
original barbecue
Yeah,
beer.
still drive. You can't say that
Banging.
to the public. You cannot
No, I
still
can't.
drive.
I can't. That's just,
Um,
there'll be a health
Driving beer. That's the tagline for that
Driver's
one.
lager.
Yeah.
one of my business goals is to find a company that will contract bottle those stubby bottles for us
Nice.
and make a lager that's as cheap as I can possibly make a lager that still tastes delicious, like those French stubbies.
You should.
And just contract bottle like 40 hex of it and release it at Christmas.
Thing is, you're not the only person that feels nostalgic about those little.
No, exactly.
French stubbies.
We've brought it up
Yeah,
on the
Big
pod
seller.
It's
many
one. It's
times
like it's in my
before,
5-year plan for the next 5 years. Is to
Doing
release
it something.
a stubby 1 year.
Is that the pinnacle? Like,
Yeah, that's
where
like
you're working
when I've done
towards
that, I know that you fucking made
the
it.
next 5 years.
Do you guys ever listen to talking about another podcast? Do you guys ever listen to the Beer and Brewing magazine podcast? So Beer and Brewing magazine's a great American magazine, and they do a podcast as well. And it's aimed at pro brewers and home brewers and just enthusiasts as well. And I listen to that quite a lot. And there's always interviews with breweries. And one of the last question is always like, what does success look like to you as a brewery?
Yeah.
And for me, it's stubbies.
French I want to emulate
Beer Dior.
the cheapest.
I want
French
it. Once we can literally have the time and the energy and the money to do something that kind of frivolous.
What was that?
And I know I've made it. You know,
Beer for the people.
that's peak craft there, isn't it? Just hitting the.
That's it. Back to lager.
Yeah.
That supermarket in West End where you used to be able to buy like a whole pallet.
like macro.
It was
Was it
a bit
Macro?
like macro. I can't remember what it's called now. Netto.
Netto,
It
yeah.
was Netto.
Yeah.
Does anyone remember Netto? Scandinavia.
Yeah, is that one with the little dog for the logo?
That's right. And we used to, when we were kids, we used to get like into Netto and buy like an entire 24 slab for like a £5 or something.
Yeah. There you go.
Those were the days, Jimmy.
And then go my BMX.
That's another way to market it. Beer for children. There you go.
we're
breaking
the
all the social norms today, aren't we? We're destroying every one of them. We can have 12 beers and drive, and you can drink as a 15-year-old. I mean,
I went this afternoon before I came here. Me and my wife went to see the Book of Norman. I was about to say,
Yeah.
Good old Norman, that well-known. The well-known,
Novelist.
the Normans, you know, the people that knock on your door and just say hello. Sorry,
my name's Norman.
Yeah,
Mormon.
the Book of Mormon, and
Not
so
really.
my normal radar of what is acceptable to say in normal public is like way down.
Maeve
Because that is just a there's so much wrongness in that.
I'm gonna go and see it the end of the month.
It was fun. It's a little bit. I don't know. I found it a bit. There was a couple of things, and I'm like, I don't know if that's funny. Actually, it might just actually be. You know, when you like
offensive.
When it like toes the line between like genuinely horribly offensive and funny, then that's when it's quite good. Which South Park and those guys do really well. Everybody's got AIDS. America, what is that? It's Team America, right?
Team America.
And but for this, there's a couple of things.
3 types of people in this world.
Yeah. But there was a couple of things in this, and I was just like, no, actually, I don't know if I can't actually laugh at that. And that was slightly disappointing, but there were some other good jokes in it. It wasn't time. But now my radar for we won't tell the stories from when I worked at London Fields. Is basically how that.
Yeah, I think we should definitely avoid that.
What about going back to the start on your homebrewing career and how you actually got into commercial?
So I'll give you my little background story. So I was working in wine. I worked for Oddbins for quite a few years. I was a shop manager in Oddbins for about 4 or 5 years, and I studied my diploma in WSET diploma in wine whilst I was there.
All right, okay.
But I was always into beer. So when I was about 18, my dad took me to Belgium and was like, "Oh, this is where the good beer is."
Yeah.
I was never really. I drank cask beer in one of our local pubs, the Hobbit, because it was cheaper than everything else. I think it was 5%, and everyone was drinking like Foster's at like, I don't know, at the time probably £2 a pint, and I was drinking Hotback Summer Lightning for £1.80 a pint, and I was like, "Oh, I'm getting way more money's worth than you guys." It wasn't that I was into it. It was just that it was cheaper with more alcohol. But when my dad took me to Belgium, he was like, "Here's really good beer," and I was like, "Wow, this is just blowing my mind in terms of what beer can be like." And as an 18-year-old, it was of course nothing to do with the fact that all the beers are 9-10% at all. Of course. But I came home with a bottle of Rochefort 8, Saison Dupont, and an Orval, and that, a couple of each of those. And as an 18-year-old coming home, drinking those, that kind of started my journey of it really. And I think that really helped with when I started working in wine, because I was already interested in flavour.
Yeah.
And drinks actually being delicious, rather than just a reason to get drunk,
What year was this roundabout? What kind of year was it you kind of started to transition?
So I was 18 in 2001 is when I was, so that was then.
Yep.
And then a couple of years after that, my dad started working in the States. Well, he didn't work in the States, but he had to travel out to the States for a week at a time, a few times a year. And he went out to San Francisco and was like, "Oh, it's quite gregarious. He likes good beer and stuff." And was chatting to the guys and like, "What are the locals drinking? What's good?" And so he got into American IPA because of that. I remember that one of the first times we went over there, we came back with a bottle of Pliny the Elder and a bottle of Great Divide Hercules, double IPA. It was like, "Oh, this is what the locals are drinking." And I was like, "Shit!" It's just like off the charts, like, just completely blew my mind. So I was like,
totally different.
I was into drinking. I started drinking like Trappist beers and Hoegaarden and saisons and stuff, and then like pine and grapefruit and all that sort of stuff hit my palate. Massive bitterness that you never got from the Belgian beers I was drinking at the time, and it was just like a light bulb went off, and I was like, "Beer is great." Straight away, I was like, "American craft beer is really exciting. I want to find more of that. Belgian beer is great. I know I can get it over here. This is just a really fun time." And then I started working in wine shops, and got really into wine because the flavour is so interesting, and because at the time I was playing in bands and things like that, and I needed to actually
earn some money.
Yeah, exactly. Which I'm definitely doing. And like, if you ever heard my band, you'd be like, "Yeah, he definitely needs to get a job." So I started working in wine, and then, of course, because I was into craft beer anyway, I started homebrewing as well for a couple of my mates that worked in wine as well. One of my good mates, Luke Coulstone, which is now the European market manager for YCH hops. Mm-hmm. My first ever all grain brew was with him. We did a clone of Sierra Nevada Torpedo.
Yeah.
Sierra Nevada
Torpedo. Yeah.
We're like a couple of hellers in by now.
Yeah, we are.
But we put pink peppercorns in it, so we thought it'd be a really cool idea. And it was actually really nice. Genuinely, it was good. And then and we did that at his house, and then I bought like a cool box and that whole like old school setup.
Yeah, 3-pot,
3 vessel.
Yeah, like an old cool box with like a little tap filter in it. There's a mash tun and like a gas burner, all that kind of stuff, and like set up in my garden on different parts of garden furniture.
Oh, like gravity.
Like gravity style, yeah.
Yeah, no pumps.
And, no pumps at all. It was all completely. And I started just brewing loads of Belgian influenced stuff, and because I was reading about it. I knew
you're
that
probably drinking it as well. So
exactly, loads. And I read that you can ferment warm and all the rest of it with Belgian yeast and let it free rise. And so I was like, well, I've got no way of making stuff 18 degrees, so I'm just going to make Belgian influenced beers because it's a great way of making cool beer at home that I'm going to really enjoy, that I wasn't getting from a lot of the UK breweries and stuff. So it was good fun.
Yeah.
And when I was at Odd Bins historically, Oddbins had a really great beer selection, and then it went through a couple of different ownerships whilst I was there. I actually got made redundant like twice from them, which is weird. But, the first time I got made redundant with enough money to buy my wife's engagement ring, so I'll take it.
Happy days.
And worked for I worked for Adnams doing wine sales. Funny enough, for Adnams and selling into Michelin-star restaurants, which is weird. When I came back again, we started this local beer buying scheme because I was like, let's get some good beer in London. The Colonel had just started, Beavertown was just getting going. There was Hackney Brewery and London Fields Brewery, and there was a scene starting to happen in London when I was living up there. I'm born and bred Southampton, but I lived in London for 8 years, and that's where I learned to brew. And so I got to know some of the breweries through bringing that beer into the shop. So basically, we were persuading the owners to go, we've got a load of petty cash here. I can buy 2 cases of Colonel IPA with that. Can I just buy that and we can sell it? And they're like, well, we need to figure it out. And I was like, well, let's figure it out then. And so we started doing that, and that kind of pushed Oddbins to do more local beers, and I think they do quite a lot more now, if they're still actually going.
Are they still going?
And then one of the I think there's still a few shops. I think they've shut down and opened up. And I mean, who knows? But one of the breweries that I was buying from London Fields offered me a job in beer, and I was home brewing, and they offered me a sales and marketing manager job, and I was like, only if I can brew like once a week or so. And they said, yeah, sure. Sweet. So I didn't do as much brewing as I'd like to there, but.
What was the jump like? What was that jump like when you went from homebrewing to then the learning sort of thing to commercial? Was it totally different?
Well, yeah, because it's not as fun at all. Homebrewing is like, I mean, when I started brewing on a 10-barrel kit, I was like, this is fucking way hard, and I thought I used to be a little bit stressed. I want to make sure it's right as a home brewer. And when I started brewing on a 10-barrel kit, I was like, homebrewing's fucking easy shit, you know. And why was I ever stressed about it? And
it actually feels like work.
Yeah, it's probably like getting in the fucking digging out like a ton of grain and shit. You know, it's hard.
Cleaning, yeah.
You know, I mean, I learned to brew. So a guy called Ben Ott, who started 40 Foot Brewery in Dalston, was the head brewer at the time, and he basically taught me how to brew. He's a master brewer from VLB in Berlin. So I learned some good technical stuff from him, which was really helpful. And then when I went and brewed at a brew pub after that, and then at Camden Town Brewery for a year before moving back to Southampton, brewing a couple of trad brews down here whilst I was writing my business plan for Unity. Definitely. Even though London Fields was an absolutely crazy place to work, it gave me that head start and some skills. A lot of sometimes learning what not to do is as good as learning what to do.
Learning from someone else's mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of mistakes happening in that brewing time.
Not doing that.
But yeah, there you go. So that's my background, man. But I homebrewed all the way up till when I started Unity. So I kept brewing like every other week, pretty much at home whilst I was working for other breweries. My wife thought I was mad. She was like, "You've just like brewed 20 barrels of beer at work today. Why are you coming home and putting a brew on the fucking stove at home?" It's like, you're absolutely stupid. I'm like, yeah, because I'm not making that beer at work. I want to make the beer I want to make at home,
Yeah.
But I was just, I got the bug.
Still had the you had the passion for it.
Yeah, man.
So have you knocked the homebrewing on the head now because you are making the beers you want to make at work?
I've not done a homebrew since I started Unity.
Yeah, okay.
Because I've got I had when we started we had a 10 hectoliter kit. We've got a 12 hectoliter kit now.
Yeah.
I've got I was like, I've got 1,000 liters to fuck about with instead of 20.
So does it almost feel like one big home
no,
project?
Not at all. Because I can't fuck this up. Whereas at home, I was like, I'm going to experiment. I'm going to throw. When I first started doing kettle sales at home and all that kind of stuff, and I used to do quite a lot of like wild stuff at home, and from being into bells and beers and stuff, and just throwing as much hops at things as I could, and you know, I knew that worst that could happen at home was that I was losing out on, 18 quid of ingredients or whatever it was at the time. And whereas, I need to make sure that every batch of this is great. Otherwise, I'm losing.
The stakes are a bit
it's
higher.
like thousands of pounds to be lost.
Yeah.
I mean, we do.
Like my family eat or not.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, big time.
How much is a batch? Interest cost-wise for you, if you had to pour it?
I could look on the spreadsheet. So one batch for us, if we like a sold volume, is about $3,500. But obviously the ingredients are about half that.
Okay.
So we make about a 55% GP on a batch.
Yeah.
And that's a lot, because it's not just the cost of those ingredients; it's those sales we missed out on. But that doesn't mean we don't dump beer if it's not good enough. And the owner of the brewery in the States called The Brewery, and it's Bruery, make amazing sour beers and Belgian influenced beers. He said almost famously, I think, that it certainly stuck with me when I first started Unity, that if you're not throwing beer away, you're not making good beer, because if you're not throwing beer away, it means you have at some point sent out bad beer, because it just happens, So we probably throw away a batch once a year,
right?
That we gave something a go, and it just didn't work out, and it just didn't pass. Like, for example, at the start of this year, so me and our brewer, but are the only people that can brew here. I don't do very much brewing now, only when he goes on holiday. But we both got COVID at the same time at the start of this year, so we didn't brew for 2 weeks. And that meant our water filters we didn't even think about it, but our water filters that remove the, like a little bit of solids, but they remove, the main reason we've got them is to remove chlorine.
Yeah.
Double carbon filters.
Yeah, double carbon filter.
Yeah.
And when we didn't brew for 2 weeks, water was just sat there. It wasn't having the normal run through. And we just didn't even think about it. And we did a couple of batches that week, and I was like, "This is not tasting that not tasting right." And so we checked the chlorine levels, and they'd gone up from 0 to 0.04 or whatever it is. I think it's 0.04, I think, which is just below the potential flavour threshold. But it's actually what it does to the beer in other time. Down the line is a lot more. So we picked up loads of astringency and niceness, and so we chucked the batches away because they just weren't right. And it's a shame. But now we've got written on the water filters.
Yeah, exactly.
If there is ever a time where we haven't just got the water flowing through and it's going to stay stagnant for a while, then we know. I mean, it feels like a rookie mistake, but an honest one as well, I guess. So just didn't think about it. So we've never had to worry about it before. We test the chlorine every couple of weeks.
When you got COVID, you kind of, you
maybe
think about a couple of other things.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that we went brew for 2 weeks, I was like, shit, how are we going to have enough beer for people? But yeah, but
so
make it work.
Along that sort of lines, there's just a question come up on the chat. Are you sort of like piloting brews on a smaller kit at all, or do you go straight in at the?
No, we go straight in. I mean, I brewed at 5 brews before I started Unity. My brewer brewed at about 4 or 5 brews as well, and there's a knowledge of ingredients and things that means that we've both been doing it for long enough that we know that what we're going to put out is going to be good. Yeah. There's a couple of things our brewery assistant that we're training up on the kit is great at all the cellar stuff. So like tank cleaning and transfers and setting up canning line and like doing all the gravities and checks and stuff. Brilliant. We're just now training him up on the brew kit to mash in and start brewing. And he's got a what is it, like a grandfather at home.
Aye.
And I want to start piloting 0.5% like alcohol, low alcohol free beer on that, because I'm not comfortable with doing that at a larger scale, because I'm not there's some really fucking mad ways to make those beers, like mashing at 80 degrees and stuff that just terrifies me. The idea that we could potentially make something really horrible. you know, so that's the kind of only time when I've gone, you know what we need to do. If we want to do this properly, we need to do some trial batches of it.
Like totally left field sort of stuff outside you.
So how would you approach a more standard recipe if you're using like a new like a hop or a malt or something that you've not necessarily used before? You just sort of
big part of it is chatting to buddies as well. You know, I'm lucky because I've been in the industry for 11 years or so now. I'm lucky enough to have good friends in other breweries.
Just tap into the knowledge pool.
But the same thing. It all goes both ways. So I get calls, you know, now and again from buddies, and like, oh, you used that before? What do you think? And you know, we all kind of talk to each other, which is one of the great unique things about craft beer. You know, the idea that good people is bollocks, but there are lots of it is because there's a lot of fucking pricks in the beer industry, as we all have started to see now, which is great that that's coming out. Because it means that things will change. But there is that collaborative culture, which is completely unique to the beer industry, I think. You know, because of that, I think we've seen other things like coffee companies and people, you know, different producers doing collaborations with each other. Our old brewer, his brother grows mushrooms for a living. And he's done a collaboration with another mushroom grower, you know. But things like that just wouldn't have happened.
What sort of mushrooms?
Oh, he grows like 9 different varieties, man.
Oh yeah.
How are those kinds? Oh shit, yeah. I was a bit slow on the uptake.
Right, we'll chat afterwards.
Yeah, so I mean that's what's great. That collaborative culture is really unique and wonderful. Like, you know, one of the reasons why we called Unity is that togetherness, and that you know, I wouldn't be the brewer I am today without my friends that are brewers.
So who do you sort of talk to or collaborate with, or just generally get advice from the most sort of out there? Who are the companies that you're chatting to?
Alex Troncoso from Lost and Grounded has always been a really big help to me. Sam from Gypsy Hill is a wealth of knowledge of like actually running a business. I'd brewed at lots of breweries, but I'd never run a business, you know, and it's a whole
that's another game.
And James Heffron at Verdant, that we chat quite a lot. Who's Andy from Elusive? He's just good, mate. We just talk about drinking Durango XX Bitter. We've done 4 collabs together now. 3 of them were trying to clone it, and the other one was Black IPA, because Elusive Black IPAs, you just got to do it.
Yeah, agreed.
The guys at Track Brewing, Cloudwater, those guys have always been really great for advice. Bennett obviously from 40 Foot in the early days. Yeah,
I was hoping Track wouldn't get a name drop there. I'm pleased now.
Tricky's a big Track fan.
Oh,
bit of a fanboy.
Yeah, bit of a fanboy.
They're really, really good. And then their new place, they really deserve that place. If you ever been to their old site, it's like, guys, you're way too good for this. You know?
Oh, really?
It was like a little arch with like crap flooring, but they were knocking out some of the best beer in the world, really, out of this not great site. That they were making the absolute best they could out of it.
Yeah.
And the amount of work they were putting in just to do what they were doing there it's crazy. So their new site with a nice kit and a really lovely tap room, they just, you know, out of any brewery that I know, actually they deserve to have that, you know. But they got really cool attitude as well. They're like, we don't want to. This is it now. You know, we've got no intention of getting any bigger than this. This is, which is a similar attitude to what I dig that, because that's ours. You know.
Yep.
Like, we've got enough room to put 2 more tanks in here, and that's as far as we're going to go.
There's a limit to like the level of like what sort of stress of running a huge
Man, I'm not actually very good at running a company anyway. So the idea that I could have to run a big one is just terrifying.
That's quadruple output.
Yeah, no.
How do we feel about that?
No. That's why everyone's like, would you ever sell out? I was like, they wouldn't fucking want to buy it, man, because they'd be like, right, what's your ambitions to the brewery? I'm like, just don't die.
Less
make
stress.
delicious fucking beer and try and have a good time, and
They are
make sure
wholesome.
that everyone can get paid.
Wholesome values.
Make sure our
That's the
shareholders
way to do it.
I want to make sure that our investors get a return on their investment, and that's a big important thing for me, and because they were the people that facilitated me to be able to basically have my dream.
They get a discount on beer.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah, some of my investors won't get that back just on beer though. When we first started, so I started the company with none of my own money at all, and we started it all on 85 grand, which is about insane. What anyone should start.
Wow, that's insane.
What size was the kit?
10 hex.
So on 85 grand, you got a 10 hex kit.
It was that shit of a kit. But we were reinvesting the money we're making all the time. Then when we moved, before we moved here, we crowdfunded. So we now have, I only own 45% of the company because the other 55% is owned by just over 300 people that are part of our community, which is great. It's cool. And I've never really been like, I want to own all of it. I get to pay myself a salary, which pays for my mortgage and my daughter in nursery, and so that's me happy. Nice. Making beer that I'm proud of.
Nice.
Keeping my staff happy.
I mean,
exactly. Speaking of beer, you should be proud of. I'm drinking your.
Are you drinking Conflux
at the minute? Yeah.
Talking of other gold medal winning beers, right there.
Yeah. Hold on.
It's fucking lovely.
My award's on the wall over here.
Is it? Is that your SIBA Gold Award by any chance?
Yeah, it's right there. We're our beer is being tasted for the nationals, pretty much as we speak. So that's southeast. So that's London and southeast. That's gold pale ale, which is the hardest category, which I was well chuffed with.
So this is like your house pale ale. So you keep this on as like a core beer.
Yeah, that was the first beer we ever made.
I haven't had it for ages, actually.
We just changed it a little bit.
Citra and Azaka.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we've switched out the Azaka and for a little bit of Idaho 7.
Okay.
But
it's got a really nice, soft, pineapple, fruity kind of
yeast does a lot as well.
Papaya thing. What's the yeast you're using?
It's just a variation of LA3, like everyone else is making a hazy beer. You want another beer?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me.
What do you want?
Go to the latrine and get a beer, shall I?
Go nuts.
Sweet. Right. I'll surprise you.
Yeah.
Cool. You guys can do your thing.
I like surprises. Good. Right. Jimmy's gone to the bar.
That's it.
So now we'll just have awkward silence for about 5 minutes until he gets back, yeah?
Well, only if you want to make it awkward, Chucky.
Yeah, let's just sit and stare blankly into the screen.
I mean, yeah. Why not? Chris is very quiet.
Yeah, I've got a migraine, mate.
No.
So,
Chris, yes.
Quick question for you, Trick. So, how did you do in the lager competition?
So I finished behind Owen, but only by a margin of 5 points, I believe. So, respectable defeat, I would call it.
I have to say, I'm super fucking proud of my Hop Edition compadres for having
not
balls.
just the Hop Edition people, but some of our listeners as well. And
I don't care about
friends of the pod.
But I do actually care about them quite a lot. So there's.
I was trying to reach out there, Chris, but you're just like, fuck those guys.
Just slap them back down.
Just let me say, because in amongst us and our close group of friends, most of whom we never met, but there has been some truly outstanding brewing done, clearly given by the fact that they've done what they've done and scored what they've scored in this competition. So, just another little point that whilst we may sit here and talk bollocks and Owen may drink tippers and Tricky may be battered 3/4 of the way through every podcast, we do seem to have some skill.
Yeah.
So we can rest easy in the knowledge that even though I've just finished your beer, Owen, by the way, and awesome. I genuinely can taste the acetaldehyde in it. It's a faint tinge, but it's definitely still there. It was a beautiful beer, very nice, very crisp, loved it. And honestly, I don't think that slight touch of apple was detrimental to the beer in any way, shape, or form. In fact, for me personally, I think it actually enhanced the final flavour. I think that just that wee smidge of that sharp green apple just right at the end played really well with the hops that you put in it. So well done, mate. And Tricky, I've not had your beer yet because you're a cunt and haven't sent it out. But you know,
well, I mean, speak your mind, Chris.
I do every time, and I've been quiet for literally 23 minutes.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna
and he comes straight
say
back
a lot
in
here.
just the torrent of abuse for me. Like, fuck you.
I think genuinely we've got some skills in the group. So well played, guys. It sounds like it was a fun competition.
Well, I mean, just coming back to Owen's beer, because I've actually been doing a video for it, and the idea of the video was sort of how well can a short turnaround pressure fermented beer do in a competition, and I was hoping to get a reasonable score, which I have, to sort of include the feedback for that in the second part of the video, which I will. But now Owen's gone and bloody won the thing with a beer that you did pressure ferment it, right, Owen?
And it was, yes, I did. Yeah,
and you actually brewed it after me, so it was an even shorter turnaround. Is that right? Or
correct? Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So how old was the beer as of today when it was judged?
Well, as of today, probably. I'd have to check. I reckon maybe 6 weeks.
Okay. I think it'll be less than that. I think
5.
That was 5.
Yeah, we do 5.
Yeah.
Let me
2 weeks fermentation, 3 weeks.
It must be less than that.
Day 32 since it went in the keg, I think.
Really? Hang on a minute. How old's my beer then? Surely.
But there's another admission I need to make. It wasn't actually a Munich yeast. It was a Czech yeast.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh,
well, they all originally come from. They pretty much are all originated from the Feinstefan yeast.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the point was
they're
both pressure fermented beers, and your one won it, and
what's the benefit
all the
of
other
pressure
beers
fermentation?
were relatively well scored. So
I think it's just like turn it around a bit quicker.
Really?
Yeah. So I actually fermented this out at 7 psi.
Right. You can ferment it warmer as well if you want to.
At 14, I think I went 14, 15 degrees.
Because the top pressure suppresses ester formation.
Yeah. So they actually finished out pretty quick. But I was just trying to strike that balance of like, I know I need to turn this around pretty quick. Yeah. Also, I don't want to suppress too much of the esters. No. So I'm not going to ferment it at like 18 degrees at like 15 psi. But one thing I do is I think it stalled out a little bit. Not all yeasts like pressure ferments, right. And actually, there's not.
We spun ours to get the carbonation, so there is a certain amount of pressure there
at the end. Yeah, just
about halfway through, we shut it off. Well, we hold it. We've got spinning valves, so we hold it at pretty much. So at the start of fermentation, we will actually hold it at about. Like 5, 3, 4 psi, something like that, and then we'll ramp it up to so it's barely on,
Yep.
And it bubbles a lot, and then halfway through we'll bring it down to about a bar, and that gets us about 2.1, 2.2 volumes of CO2. Then we'll just top it up a little bit more in tank. So I guess there's some, but then all the ester formation happens in the first few days anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll ramp it. So we start at 10, and then once at the point where we close it off to a bar, we'll let it ramp up.
So do you move it from the uni tank to a conditioning tank after the 2 weeks?
We keep it in the same tank.
Keep it in the same tank. You just drop the
yeast off.
Drop the yeast,
yeah.
Yeah,
so we're drinking Analog, our American brown ale, which we do. We do like a few, what I would call, like origin American craft beer styles.
Yeah.
So we do an amber ale called Fuzz Pedal, and a brown ale called Analog, and we did West Coast pale, really trad kind of Sierra Nevada or West Coast pale called Radiophonic. So there's that kind of old school theme, old school electronics theme going on.
I don't think I've tried any of those beers.
Yeah, well, there you
so
go.
this is, I'm getting quite into my trad beers.
Yeah.
Oh,
This is like US trad rather than English trad.
No, US trad.
But yeah, it's quite aromatic. But this is dry hop during at the start of fermentation. But that's USO5. That's got loads of Munich in it. Fucking love it.
Loving it.
There's a flavour in there I can't quite put my finger on.
What's up? Some mosaic and something else.
Like a licorice thing going on.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm picking out.
Where's
I
that
think
coming
it's
from?
licorice.
That might be the combo of the berry notes of mosaic.
I think it must be.
Like that sweet Munich and a little touch of chocolate to get the colour.
Yeah.
Do you know what I love the most about this particular part of the podcast is these two are sat there discussing this beer and we don't have one.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
And on Wednesday when we were doing the notes and we're like, you know what, we'll all put an order in, we'll all have some beers for Saturday, it'll all be amazing. Owen sends you a text message and you're like, nah, you won't fucking get them till Monday.
Do you know what happened though?
Guess who just put an order in just before that message?
Literally 5 seconds before I'd put an order in, I was like, I've just got my order in. And then he was like, you're not gonna get it till Monday.
And I went, Andy. Yeah, so we
till Monday.
Anything that got ordered on Wednesday. Well, no, actually. So anything that got ordered after about 4 o'clock on Wednesday.
Yeah, this was Wednesday night.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, perhaps we should have planned a little bit further ahead than
because we went
Wednesday evening, but
we left with like all of our full. So we're only 4 of us full time. We've got like 3 part timers that are like 3 days a week, and then just a couple of taproom people, and all 4 of us full time left for Verdant at 5 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. So like,
well, I got mine via Clapton Craft thanks to your recommendation.
There you go.
Jimmy. So
if I'd literally waited another minute, I would have been drinking it as well.
And what were you doing at Verdant, Jimmy?
We were doing a collaboration for it, Verdant.
Yeah.
We were mainly drinking a lot and eating pizza and
How's it doing?
hanging out, talking about water treatment.
How does a typical collaboration brew work? Does the person visiting basically end up doing most of the work, or are you just there to get pissed? And like,
a lot of the work happens prior to the brew.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So the recipe formulation and because our designer Matt Canning is such an important part of our of us as a company, we try and push for a collab with him as well. So whoever we're collabing with, designer collabs with Matt on the artwork. So they did that as well, which is really cool.
Nice. That's cool.
We did it with Left Hand Giant a few years ago, and James Yo from those guys. So it's a cool, fun thing to do. So yeah, we'll bounce a load of emails around with what we're going to brew and recipe, put it all together, and then on the day we just have a time.
Can you give us a sneak peek as to what you?
We brewed reasonably wheat heavy IPA with Talus and Laurel in the Whirlpool, and Citra and 2 brand new experimental varieties in the Dry Hop.
Nice.
Do you not know 0 kettle hops?
Juicy boy.
Yeah, 0 kettle. We don't do any kettle hops here. When we're doing something low bitterness and juicy, just Whirlpool.
So how long do you boil for?
We boil for normally. So if you're not using Pilsner malt, we'll boil for 60 minutes. If we're using Pilsner malt, we'll boil for 90.
Because of risk of DMS.
And
DMS, yeah.
So we're not boiling for reasons of hop character. We're boiling for reasons of reducing off flavors and things that.
Have you ever experimented with shortening that, or did you?
No. When we brew sours, we even do a full 60-minute boil with pale malt. We don't kettle sour. We do sours in the FE.
So just treat it as like a safety first approach as far as the length of boil goes.
I just don't want to risk having.
Yeah.
So with the Lallemand sour yeast.
Yeah. So we don't use that. So we use a mixture of Kvike and Lactobacillus.
Oh, okay.
And the Lactobacillus strain we use is sensitive to IBUs up to about 4 or 5 IBU.
Yeah.
So I'm never worried about it spore forming because any beer that goes in that tank or through our canning line, other than our sours, is like at least 18 IBU.
Okay.
So it's just never going to be. It will just never spore form.
Yeah.
It won't ever get to that problematic stage.
Okay.
So you don't need to separate the
that's
tank.
an interesting way to look at it.
No, we don't worry about it. We get our beers analysed every month and no problem.
I guess lactose is probably like the lesser of concerning.
Yeah, I mean, if we were putting PDO in there, then I'd be a bit more worried.
Or Brett.
I wouldn't want to send Brett or PDO or even Diastaticus yeast strains through our canning line.
Yeah.
Just don't want to risk it.
Yeah.
We used to, in our old site, we used to use quite a lot of Diastaticus strains, and I've done Brett primary fermentation with, if your CIP regime is really, really good, then you shouldn't worry too much. But I just, I just don't, like here, I just don't want to risk. Just, minimize risk.
It could be like significantly brewery wrecking, couldn't it? Like everything just ends up with Brett in it. And
nice goaty beers.
Line. Yeah. But if it was in the tanks, it wouldn't necessarily be the end of the world because you could get that out. But our canning line's got so many little moving parts that it would be, if we got a Brett infection on our canning line, it would be a new canning line, basically. Which is
like 80 grand, isn't it?
Our canning line itself was only 55.
Still.
But yeah, I mean, that's
it's not lunch money, is it?
No. Well, we haven't finished paying for it yet, so so we don't want to do that. Although we have got some Brett-y things happening in the brewery. They're away from the other stuff, and we package them on a manual bottling line. We've got a separate keg filling.
Poor souls.
I know.
Is that you, Jimmy?
No, I didn't have to do the last one actually.
Did you know?
Strange.
Well, when we first started Unity, it was bottle only, bottle and keg, and we were the first brewery to use to mobile can with 440ml cans. So Cloudwater just installed their canning line with 440s, and there was one other brewery that had just installed a canning line for 440s, and we just started mobile. The mobile canning company existed before, but they were just doing 330s before then. And we did their first 440ml run.
No way.
Because we didn't have the space to have our own canning or the money at the time. But yeah, before then we were all little Belgian style bottles, trying desperately to not oxidize. So we had like a jerry rigged load of different pipes, sort of slowly putting blankets of CO2 on things in our manual bottling filler to try and reduce oxidation in our bottle conditioned New England pale ales, which is just like now I just think, oh fuck man, that's just absolutely but we used a bottling yeast and stuff, so we got like super quick carbonation, so the DO was lowish, but I mean it was still, as soon as we started force carbonating, because we force carbonated all our kegs, but obviously with bottles we just didn't have the kit to do it. And at the time it was legit, like the kernel's still bottle conditioned, and their hoppy beers are amazing, so it can be done.
But then they don't do the whole like hoppy hazy thing there, do they?
Well, I guess there's a more West Coast league.
They don't have an ITAP.
They're not brewing.
No,
you'll recommend that to them. Get the ITAP in, solve all your problems.
Okay. Quick question for you then, and we've got a few questions for you, so let's just rattle through these.
Yeah, man.
Why do you choose the styles that you choose to brew? And a follow-up to that from one of our viewers on YouTube is, are you already or are you planning to follow the recent trend in bringing back some traditional British styles?
So, great questions. So, I want to make beer that other people are going to really enjoy. I don't sign up to that. I make beer that I really love. I make beer for me because that's very boring. as a home brewer, that's what I did. But I've a commercial business, and what makes me really excited is when someone's drinking a beer that we've made here, and they're really enjoying themselves, and they're telling their friends that it's delicious. Like that fills me with absolute joy. Seeing someone else having a really great time and enjoying my beer gives me so much fulfillment. That's why we do it, really. I mean, that if we can do that whilst paying our bills, then that's job done, really.
Because did you not start off as a kind of saison, a lot of saisons?
Yeah, so so the first brew we ever brewed was Conflux. So we always had a New England pale, New England what you would call, we call them just hazy pale, hazy IPA.
Yeah.
So we always had that. But when we started, that was about 20% of our production, and 80% was Belgian kind of influenced beers. So we had a Brune that was brewed with cardamom and cacao, a saison brewed with spelt and some interesting UK hops, and then like a Belgian Taras Bulberish kind of Belgian table beer, and and yes, other saisons and seasonals that are like that. And obviously, some beers sell faster than others. And when you're making special releases every other week, then you go, well, which one's gonna, keep the tanks empty, keep the tanks up. And so we ended up just organically brewing more and more IPAs and different interesting stouts and quick sours and stuff like that. And like GC IPAs just became just took over. And then we started having this weird backlash where, because we got so known for like decent hoppy beers, people would be like, oh yeah, Unity, I like Unity, and they'd pick a saison we brewed off the shelf and in a can, and they would drink it and be like, oh, I fucking hate this, I don't like saisons. And it's like, well, it does say saison on it, but we realized that we were getting some brand recognition for a style.
Yeah.
So we set up Made Provisions, our side project, so that wouldn't happen. So we could make sure that whenever people saw a beer on the shelf, they could have total confidence that it would be something that they could really enjoy.
Yeah.
And it meant that we had a Made Provision, the same thing. Those people that got into us from day one would be like, cool, we know we really like the Made Provision stuff. And the Made Provisions beers don't sell very quickly, but they don't need to, because we make like half batches of them, and we do it whenever we've got a bit of tank space,
Do they tend to be styles that are a little bit more shelf stable as well?
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
to be honest,
yeah. So none of them are hop heavy, or even like we did talking about going, and that leads on really nicely actually to the people talking about brewing more traditional English styles again. Part of that Made Provisions brand is that. So we did a little bit of that. So when we first started, we had some casks, and I was very much into brewing traditional English beer into those casks. And everyone was just like, no, we want Conflux in a keg. If you're not going to put Conflux in a cask, we don't want a fucking ESB you've made. I'll take 2 kegs of Conflux instead, And I was like, shit, we could get these, great traditional cask beer. People didn't want it at the time, so we stopped doing it. But yeah, when we started doing Made Provisions, so we've got an opportunity here to not have to worry about that batch making money, if you know what I mean, necessarily. It doesn't have to be, it's not going to impinge on our production that pays the bills, And so, we brewed a EIPA, an English IPA with Challenger, and a load of Chevalier malt, and a blend of an English and a Belgian strain to try and recreate a more historic yeast flavour. And that obviously that had a lot of hops in it, but that kind of hop character is going to get better and more interesting. We load of orangey Challenger, in there. We dry hopped a bit with it and stuff, and tried to do a very traditional, 1800s ish. I mean, Challengers are more modern hop than that, but that vibe,
It's got higher
so,
alpha as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and so we do a bit of that under the Made Provisions brand as well. And we plan on doing 2 full cask batches this year under Made Provisions. One a very classic Summer Lightning inspired golden ale. Summer Lightning is the OG golden ale, and it's not far away from here. So I feel like we should celebrate that a little bit.
We grew up drinking that, right?
Summer Lightning, man. Yeah, exactly. Because it was 5%.
It was good.
And it was cheap.
It was cheap.
Yeah.
And all the local pubs, the Hobbit, it was like always on.
I remember just drinking it in Winchester a lot.
No, really.
Winchester.
The Black Boy. The Black Boy.
The Black Boy. Yeah.
Down in Winchester.
Winchester's that not where all the rich
Yeah, I
people
just
live?
drank a lot of it in the Hobbit because it was really cheap, and it was probably horribly.
Oh, I'm not
kept.
sure what I drank in the Hobbit. I think it might have been pint cocktails called Gandalf.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of that. Yeah.
Now that sounds like a quality beverage.
Oh, you should. When you guys come down to Southampton, I'm sure Jimmy will be up for joining us. We'll get down. We'll get down to the Hobbit.
They're like horribly day-glow cocktails named after different characters in the Lord of the Rings. It's like,
Sounds awesome.
when you're too young to be in the Hobbit, even though back in the day you can just get away with it. I don't think they.
Oh dear.
Oh wow.
In the early sort of late 90s, I'm fairly certain we were getting in there before we were allowed for certain.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna do a golden ale for late spring, and we're gonna do a classic, good old best better for cask ale week.
So, are you going traditional hopping on the golden ale, or are you going to?
Yeah, it'll be pale malt and Goldings all the way.
Yeah.
You know,
Nice.
and probably LA3 as well that we use for, or a version of that we use for like all of our New England stuff because it's such a great cask beer yeast. You know, all of those lovely stone fruit, slightly vanilla esters that are just great.
I think people
All the
forget that
glycerol,
it's obviously
That's where it came
an
from.
English
Boddington's,
yeast originally.
mate.
You know, Boddington's yeast.
Yeah, Boddington's.
So
we
not
use
quite sure how it got called London Ale Free when it's the Body's yeast.
I know, it's weird, isn't it?
supposedly, But there you go.
Yeah, it totally is a body's yeast.
But yeah, I've used it for bitters and like stouts and things like that, and it's like a amazing all-round yeast for any British style before you even think about.
So yeah, that Verdant dry strain we
hazy
use
stuff.
that quite a lot.
That's
And
great.
That is that's a Verdant's own mutated isolation of LA3.
Yep.
Apparently, it's brilliant for like British
Yeah,
cask ales and
yeah, it's great.
that sort of thing. I've not seen anyone use it
It's the glycerol
in
as well.
like in a stout.
We've
I
brewed a
wonder-
few stouts with it.
Have you?
Yeah.
How did they come out?
Lovely.
Okay, guys, I am currently sitting here and I have not had a beer for 45 minutes.
Oh my
Right,
good
shocking.
lord.
So I'm starting to get moderately tetchy. Right?
I
So
mean, you have got a
basically-
tap behind you, Chris. So I think
Yeah, but that would
there's an
involve
easy
being
solution to it.
disrespectful to our guest and actually standing up, showing him my fat ass and pulling a pint. I don't want to do that.
You can turn the
So,
camera off.
Yeah, turn the camera off, get a beer immediately.
Okay, I want to do these next 4 questions. I want to do them short and sweet, and I want to do them
Cool.
rapid fire. Okay.
Right, okay.
What's your favourite style to brew personally?
Rapid fire.
He said rapid.
fire. Come on.
It's like asking somebody what their favourite song is ever. It's just like,
okay. I love brewing IPA, but I have a emotional connection to saison, to making saison. You know,
Yeah.
like IPA is so much fun to brew. I really get off on getting very, very, very deep into hop utilization and water treatment and all that sort of stuff for hazy IPAs. I really, really love doing that. But saison just feels a little bit more, you know, like it taps into another little part of yourself,
A little funky part of yourself.
little jazzy little number.
Okay. All right then. Now, first thing, remember, this is for you personally. This is nothing to do with your business. This is nothing to do with your brewery.
Yeah.
What's your personal favourite malt?
Munich, from the Crisp Maltings Munich straight normal Munich, not dark Munich. They're normal Munich.
Okay, I mean that's a great choice. I used to brew with that quite a lot as well.
It's absolute. I've used everyone's Munich. You know, we've gone through so many different maltings, and as a home brewer as well. Before I started Unity, I used loads of different malts, and Crisps just has a depth of flavour and not a lot of colour. It doesn't put a huge amount of colour in it, but if we're brewing anything that won't have any kind of malt flavour, that malt is always in it.
I know we're supposed to be doing this quick fire, but what do you see as the difference between that versus like the actual German versions of Munich?
I think that it just has a little bit more of that sweet, candied, orange kind of note.
Okay, cool.
Just a little touch more of it. I know that I think Crisps is the base malt for it is because the Munich malt is just the way they kiln it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the base that they use for that is Marisotto, which, you know, compared to Pilsner malt, if you do that same level of kilning, it's going to be a completely different flavour.
Yeah, of course.
You know, yeah.
That's something, believe it or not, that not a lot of people take into consideration.
Yeah,
that's kind of crazy.
They don't take into account what the base malt was for producing the Cara Munich or the Chris or the, you know. And I mean, I'm a bit disappointed you didn't say Vienna because everybody knows Vienna's the greatest malt on earth. But what's your favourite hop?
Oh man, it's probably going to be something really boring, like fucking Mosaic.
You're a big fan of the Zaka, right?
No, I hate it now. It's that same thing, you know. If you okay, so when I did this on the Cloudwater their live stream during lockdown, they're like, "Have you got any funny stories about yourself?" And I ate a banana every day for 6 months because I wanted to get into bananas because they're really good for you, right? And I didn't eat very much fruit, and I kind of made it to about 5 months, and now I can't eat a banana. I fucking hate bananas. So it's like, and I think that kind of happened to me with the Zaka. Really? You know, I used to just use it in everything, and now I'm like, no, I've got rid of all of it on our contract.
Too much of a good
thing.
No,
dropped it.
You know, right? Strike two.
Yeah, that one's gone. Send him a bottle of the A word, Chris.
Columbus is a massive separated hop as well, and also like Fuggles. Our Pills has got Fuggles and Target in it, and it's just.
I was drinking session strength Pilsner. It's about 4%. It's the first beer I had when I came in, and Jimmy offered me a beer, which is what was it called?
Sonatina.
And he said, "Oh, what hops do you reckon are in there?" And I gave it a smell. I was like, "Oh, it smells a little spicy. I think it's SARS." And he was like, "No."
2/3 Fuggles, 1/3 Target.
That's insane.
Can't go wrong with a bit of Target. I like Target.
And like 5 grams
a
litre.
The English hops Pilsners, apparently, isn't it?
5 grams a litre in the Whirlpool with it as well. So.
Been raving about
hefty
Luke's version,
Right, and also, what's the brewery that's doing
Utopian?
Yeah,
their lagers are great, man. And
I've not had any of them actually.
It's all 100% you can probably apart from their yeast, but all 100% English ingredients.
Right. Yeah, so like English malt, English hops, English water, obviously. But presumably German yeast.
Yeah, they're nailing it.
That's cool.
Yeah, a lot of people rave about them. I need to get my acting gear and get some of their beer, just to try this.
Well, Cashmere is my hop of the moment.
Is it?
You know, if you like, what's your favourite hop right now? It's Cashmere.
The whole lime.
But
thing.
like forever, it's different.
The lemon lime thing.
Well, it's like a light bit of coconut, but also. So I get loads of berries from it.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
we know somebody who's produced a really good beer with cashmere in it recently, don't we?
Who's that?
No. What track? Yeah, I've got it here.
Seriously, bunch of cunts, mate. Bunch of cunts. I do a podcast with a bunch of cunts.
Literally, Jimmy's favourite and his up and coming hop. Mosaic and Cashmere.
With Villagers Brewery down in South recently, and that's Cashmere and Cryopop. That's pretty good.
Right,
Yeah.
so I'm muting my microphone. I don't care anymore.
So Chris
is
made,
out.
Chris made an IPL.
Oh, there it is.
Hazy IPL.
Yeah.
He sent us recently. Really good. I think one of the hops was Cashmere.
Yeah, it was.
Got it right there.
Bizaka, Citra, and Cashmere.
It was a great beer. But what's kind of interesting is hops do obviously change over time, right?
Yeah,
You mentioned about the mosaic and the berry thing.
2017 was like a disaster.
The mosaic over the last few years lost that berry thing. Do you think it's coming back?
I think it depends what you do with it, like where you put it and what you do, how you treat it.
Yeah.
And obviously, different hops you get from different suppliers are going to do different things, and so there isn't a mosaic.
No.
There's mosaic made there, mosaic grown there, mosaic grown there.
Yeah.
And like the later you harvest, the more allium you get. So like earlier harvested mosaic is going to be fruitier, later harvest mosaic is going to be more dank.
Yeah.
And it really totally depends. The mosaic we've been getting is a little bit more on the fruitier end of the spectrum.
Do you get to choose your mosaic?
We don't, sadly.
It's like that blueberry thing that I think maybe like 5 or 6 years ago was like really prominent and it was such a beautiful flavour of mosaic, and then I just found that kind of really disappeared. Certainly
the mosaic you get from, I mean, I feel bad because we get our mosaic from Biotransformation, which are the biggest hop growing company in the world. But I think the mosaic from YCH is much better.
Yeah.
And that has more of that thing. Like the mosaic we get, I mean, I love it still. I really love it. I really enjoy using it. But it is slightly on the more dank end of the spectrum. And we use it mainly in Collision, our house IPA, which has got a load of spelt in the grist as well.
Yeah.
We get flake spelt from a little farm in just outside of Newcastle.
Oh, you use flake spelt, do you?
Yeah, flake spelt.
I've experimented with spelt, but it wasn't flaked. It was
the malted from Best or something like that. Probably.
So, kind of following on from that, I'd be interested to hear, especially as a professional viewer, your sort of views on like Galaxy in terms of that whole thing about hops, because we've talked about this a lot on the hop edition before about how sort of back in like 2016, I think there was like peak Galaxy where it was fruit salads. You open the packet and it was like fruit salad sweets just blowing your nose off, and how whether or not like maybe the version of Galaxy that is now available to homebrewers is just not as good, or whether that's like how
you'll be getting the same as if you're getting. I mean, you're probably getting if you're getting your hops from someone like Get a Brewed or
I think we've probably tried. We've all tried Galaxy from many different suppliers, and it's generally
like that. They're getting the same hops that we're getting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess we would all say probably across the board, like it's just nowhere near like the level that it once was, and like what's happened there. I don't know.
We took the Galaxy off our contract.
Yeah.
Not that you can take it. I had to negotiate it with, and we had to give a lot more back. Well, we had to take a lot more other shit from our hop supplier in order to be able to give back any other hops. But
more fuggles.
So exactly, just more fuggles.
So what's gone on there? Do you think?
Yeah, I know. I need to get that done.
That's why it's going in on the
LYFE. But so in Australia, they do things quite differently. I'm sure there's Australian brews that get to do selection for their Galaxy. I'm sure. Who's the guy that makes Pacific Ale? I can't remember who makes that.
Stone and
Wood. That's it. Yeah. I'm sure they get to pick their own Galaxy. But through Buff House, who we get our Australian hops from, there in Europe and I think the States as well. The only people you can buy it from is Buff House. They own all the they've got the license or the ownership or whatever for all the farms in Australia. And so, but the way they do it in Australia is they homogenize it all, so they just blend it all together. Right. Whereas any other part of the world you get hops from, it could be from this farm, it could be from that farm, it could be could be a little bit of a blend, it could be who knows. And the idea of that is that everyone's getting the same thing, right? Which is a cool idea, but because there's contracts in place, it means that I think the farmers have more intention on yield rather than quality necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And obviously, the later you harvest, the more yield you get, right?
Yeah.
But the later you harvest, especially with a very, very sulfur compound heavy hop like Galaxy, you're going to get much more of those allium sulfurous compounds and a lot less of those lovely fruit bowl compounds.
Mm-hmm.
Than and
breed's ruined.
So you think it's a victim of its own success, essentially, because it's just
maybe because the
so.
farmer's just like let's just make sure the yield's really high. I mean, I think it's just suffered a little bit from that. I've not been. There are beers that are made with Galaxy that I thought are really, really good, and I think if you know where to put it, you can get those things out of it.
Yeah.
So if if you're using during fermentation dry hopping at low levels, it's good, but it can be very astringent.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's one of those where it's like when it was first around, there was so many people just doing like all Galaxy beers, and they were amazing. And then since then, like, I mean, I wouldn't even think about doing an all Galaxy IPA or something like that, because it would just be so hard.
You'd be worried that you'd just be biting on like wax,
Yeah.
We use a lot of Vic Secret instead, which has a lot of that same fruit bowl vibes of Galaxy, but it's a little bit more subtle. And so, and again, that means those other potentially rough byproducts are more subtle too. We did like hit it, do an 18 gram per litre dry hop with Vic Secret once, and that was fucking harsh. Beer.
How long did that have to stick? Did you have to condition that one for quite a while?
No, because I don't think that really makes a huge amount of difference once it's in pack. Like you could let it sit in tank. People say that if you let it sit in tank for longer, it reduces hop stringencies and stuff. But I've never really had that.
No,
and it's never really died. Once you got it, you got it. And and once it gets into pack is when it starts to reduce.
Yeah.
To me, so we
okay.
we might. So when we do a double IPA, we wait a couple of weeks to release it.
Yeah. Good.
Things like that. So, I mean, we can Thursday or Friday, and we never release beer before the Wednesday of the next week anyway. So I can make sure I do the final checks on it, and I'm happy that it's ready to rock and roll. And that extra few days mean that it's never going to be harsh when we put it out.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then, when we're doing a big double IPA or something that's double dry hopped, we'll give it another week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that our beer shines the best at about 3.5 weeks. It's when, to me, everything's really tied together and everything's popping really nicely. Is when I love drinking our hoppy beers.
3.5 weeks from when?
From packaging date.
Packaging.
From when it goes into can.
Yeah.
And your packaging, so generally it's 2 weeks and for fermenting, and then you've got a 3-week conditioning time in tank, and then 3 weeks on top of that for in can.
Oh no! So our hoppy beers, that's lagers, yeah. So fermentation is less than a week.
Yep.
Then dry hopping and the rest of it. Our beers are about 20 days to can.
Jimmy's gonna find me in the fridge later, turning all of the cans over.
Exactly.
3.5 weeks.
Right, exactly. We do about 20-21 days in tank. So we'll normally secondary our hoppy beer. Sometimes if you're doing a shorter batch, we won't really need to. We'll just manage hop dumps and stuff. Certainly anything that's hefty dry hop will always move to a secondary tank. And that helps round out the hop character nicely as well. Reduce any of those nasty vibes. And then we'll release it after like 5 days in can. But we have released beers the day of packaging because I'm always happy that we'll never release anything that I don't think is right.
Yeah.
And sometimes you say to them like, this is great, and these are just
Just go.
Stick it out now. Yeah. But our lagers, we do a 2-week fermentation, 3 weeks at 0, and then can them, put them out straight away. So 5 weeks on our lagers. Apart from our Baltic Porter that we released at the start of this year, that was 9 weeks in tank. And it still tastes like licorice, which bothers me. Carafa free, man, I just can't. This upsets me every time.
Is it time to go to Carafa 2?
It's time to go to Carafa 1.
1. What was that beer that you had a barrel of on your fourth birthday? The brewery's 4th birthday, not your 4th birthday.
A cask of.
There wasn't a cask. It was like an 11% barrel aged.
Oh yeah.
That was just insane.
On the 4th birthday.
Oh
Yeah, that was in the 4-pack.
No, I had it here.
Oh right.
On your 4th birthday party.
Yeah, that would have been in the 4-pack as well.
Oh,
for years.
Insane.
That was a
right.
bourbon barrel aged Belgian double export stout.
Oh,
so that the recipe is based on the original Truman's double export stout recipe. It's like a big 10-11% old school imperial stout, loads of black malt, all that kind of stuff.
Have you got any left?
No, I might have the old can knocking around at home somewhere.
That's a shame.
And we aged it in the bourbon barrel for like 15 months.
Wow.
It's can.
Actually, that was possibly the best barrel aged beer I've ever drunk.
All right, cheers, man.
It was marzipan.
Yeah.
Just marzipan.
Just wait,
insanity,
we've got some fun shit in barrels right now.
Oh yeah, can't wait.
We haven't got like a barrel program as per se. We've got about like 8 barrels knocking about various places in the brewery.
Well, you know.
And we've got 2 rum barrels for the triple at the moment.
Oh.
We've got 2 Heaven Hill barrels with a apple strudel imperial stout in.
Oh.
And we're about to put the base beer for this year's More Hugs into Wild Turkey barrels.
So More Hugs is your
double Hug It Out. Hug It Out is our Christmas beer, I guess.
Chocolate hazelnut?
Yeah, it's based on the purple Quality Street.
Yeah.
And then we do More Hugs every year now, which is the bourbon barrel aged double version. So that's like 10-11%. Hazelnut chocolate vanilla stout.
You are aware that right now Owen's leaning forward because he has a massive hard on, right?
It's like a schoolboy.
That makes the atmosphere a little bit awkward.
Yeah. I mean, you're only like 1.5 feet away from him, but
slightly so the vibe in that little office there.
Picked up on the orgasmic noises I was making.
Anyway, to get to the last point of this quickfire round.
Yeah, we've nailed quickfire.
Yeah, absolutely. That was just super like bam, bam, bam.
Yeah. So I think I can already guess this one, but your personal favourite yeast?
I've got 2 actually. The first one is Boston WLP 510. Is my favourite Belgian yeast. It's absolutely glorious. Use it for everything Belgium. You can make saisons with it and all sorts. It does everything. And when I was doing test brews, actually, when I was homebrewing for building recipes for Unity, that's used to use it. We didn't end up using it commercially because I could only afford shitty dish bottom tanks, so I couldn't bottom crop it, and it doesn't.
What's the origin of that yeast? Do you know?
It's the Orval primary strain, apparently, the pre-bretted strain.
Nice.
So rules are OULLES, I think it is. In Belgium, they use that direct from Orval, and there's a couple of other breweries that get it from Orval and make clean beer. And the other one was going to be, I mean, I want to say LA3, but I think it might be just Chico.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
My man.
Wow.
I really want to do a version of Conflux.
West Coast for the win.
I really want to do a version of Conflux and Collision. I mean, they're made with like an LA3 version.
Yeah, man, do a West Coast version.
I really want to do a version. Don't change anything about them apart from just ferment them with Chico. and see what they like.
I wonder if
good beers
the
with
hops
Chico.
will probably pop a little bit more, in terms of...
Well, I love. I've been lucky enough to try beers from Cellarmaker over in San Francisco. They're a small brewery, pretty well respected, well known, but small, and they do what they call West Coast hazy, and that's hazy beers made with Chico. That's what you get at the time, and they've got a bit more bitterness, so they're like 40, 50 IBU, but they've got a decent whack of oats in, and there's like heavy whirlpool hopping, and 15, 16 grams per litre dry hops. And their beer is just absolutely superb.
But wasn't it in the early days, weren't Verdant fermenting everything out with US?
Yeah, so Headband and Lightbulb were made with Chico.
Yeah. I thought they literally just used exclusively Chico,
from in the absolute early days, days, and then they quite soon started using
LA3, yeah. And then like 6 or 7 years later, they've got some crazy mutation
version. Yeah. What they did, which was interesting, was so they were using LA3, and they sent it off to the Yeast Bank and said, "Can you let us know what's in it?" Because there was a rumor that it was about 4 different strains, and they're like, "Yeah, it's about 4 or 5 different strains." And they said, "Can you bank us the dominant one?" And that's the Verdant strain.
Yeah, right.
And it's funny because like USO5 is about 4 different strains as well.
So I'm guessing that was Lanneman that they sent it to. Yeah. And then Lanneman were like, "Yeah, we can."
I've been trying to get them to dry Boston, and they're not doing it for me.
There might be some copyright issues.
Yeah. We brewed a Belgian IPA with Boston with Zapato, who's Matt Gorecki, who runs Indie Man BeerCon, IMBC. And so we brewed like a very traditional West Coast IPA and fermented with that yeast, and that's one of the best beers we ever made.
Really,
so good.
So it was a Belgian,
kind of like
West
if you
Coast.
remember Stone Cali Belgique, the Belgian fermented, slightly stronger version of Stone IPA. It's kind of that vibe, really.
Nice.
There was a few breweries back in there of American craft beer that were doing. So Flying Dog did a beer called Raging Bitch, which was a Belgian yeast fermented double IPA, West Coast style, and they just work like really piney hops like Centennial, Simcoe. They work with like nice spicy Belgian yeast really well.
Yeah, I guess you're gonna have a hard time separating the flavour contribution, right?
Totally.
That's what we're.
But if you use really fruity modern hops like Mosaic or like Eldorado or
might not work.
Stuff like that, it doesn't. It goes in. To me, it tastes like pencil shavings.
Really?
I really like it. Yeah, it's weird. It has a weird kind of woody vibe.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm up for pencil shaving.
So when people do like a dry hop, and it's the same with like Hopfenweiss, right? Cloudwater do a lot of those, and they are great beers, but they're just not for me.
Yeah,
I just don't like when you have a yeast that's a bit clovey, a bit banana-y, with a load of like really juicy, fruity American hops. To me, that it just gets really woody, which
doesn't work.
But that's very personal, and they love their Hopfenweiss, and they've got amazing palates, and so.
Well, I've heard people say that they're absolutely incredible, but like I said, still stew your own palate.
Yeah, exactly.
Beauties in the eye of holder type scenario.
Some great friends of mine that have insanely good palates love their Hopfenweisses.
Yeah, I need to check it out.
But yeah, there's a thing with like really, really like what's the SAT? Is it SAT? STA1 positive yeast.
Yeah.
Any yeast is that with fruity American hops for me is not the one. Old school pine, Cascade, Centennial, Simcoe, those more pine heavy hops works great.
Well, okay. You might not like my latest West Coast IPA. I fermented that out with it was with the yeast that they thought was a Brett yeast. Bruxtois.
Yeah, that's good though because that's quite fruity.
Yeah, it's quite.
That's
fruity.
Is that STA1 positive though?
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, but
Or
You get
at
like
least
proper
that's what
punch
they
bowl
found.
like vibes of that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm hoping. I haven't
Yeah,
even tried it yet.
we did we've done quite a few collabs with Duration and Boxcar.
Yeah.
As the three of us, and the first one that we did at our place, we did a beer that was primary fermented with
With that.
Trois, and it was delicious.
First time I used that.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Talking of West Coast IPA, are we gonna
drink some?
Are we gonna go to the commercial break? Is it time for a commercial break?
I believe it is time for a commercial break. Yes.
Could be.
Are you looking forward to a beer, Chris?
Chris has been desperately hanging out for one.
I'm
I'm gonna have to go for a whiz first before. So you guys crack
right.
on.
Yeah,
Good.
likewise.
Yeah, we might require some editing.
I'm gonna buzz in and start doing my commercial right now, whilst those guys go for a cig and Tricky goes for a pee. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm about 5 minutes. I reckon I've had to turn the light down. I'm about 5 minutes from going outside and throwing my fucking guts up.
Is it bad?
This migraine's not good.
Oh, the migraine.
And looking at white screens ain't helping either. So I have today a beer that I've been looking forward to drinking for quite a while, and it is Merc Lime Balance by Magic Rock.
All right.
And I don't even know where I got this beer from, right? It's a mango and lime hazy pale ale. It's 5%. It comes in a 330ml can. And it's got barley, oats, wheat, hops, yeast, water, stuff in it, which is basically standard beer. And I was really hoping that this beer was going to be a wonderful beer. However, I've been sat here and I've been drinking it, and I'm trying to get as much CBD in to help with my headache. And I can taste the lime and I can get the mango essence.
Yep.
It's got a really nice base on it, to be fair. The malts are really nice. You can't taste very much from with the mango and the lime, but it's actually, it's not even remotely what I was expecting it to be. I'm going to be honest with you. I was expecting something that was going to be soft and kind of, you know, almost cloudy, but with a sharp hit of lime. And then, you know, this nice kind of fade away that I always talk about, the fade away from the hops, from the flavor. And that normally fades into the malt for me. There is no fade away. You've got the mango, you've got the lime, that hits your palate, and then you get a teeny bit of the malt, and then done. That's it. No yeast character at all, nothing. No pleasant after flavor, nothing like that. It just literally hits and disappears. It's like a bleeding panda. Why they're the worst lovers in the world, pandas, because they eat shoots and leaves. Right.
What? Sorry, what are you drinking, Chris? Just
I'm
fill me in on
Magic
what I've
Rock.
missed.
I'm drinking Merc Life Balance by Magic Rock. And I was hoping this was going to be one of those beers that was going to give me that fruity sensation that I wanted, Trick, and it's not giving me that at all.
Mate, I think Magic Rock sort of, as soon as their sellout thing happened, it was just game over, to be honest.
And it's not even that murky. Do you know what I mean? It's lying to me. It's not murky.
Matt Curtis talked about them a bit when he came on, didn't he? When we actually brought this up, and he said that they'd been bought out, but now they're actually been sort of put back on the market by I forget who it was. Was it the South African beer company or something like
that, wasn't it?
Or was it?
Yeah, it wasn't working out.
Probably owned by some bigger corporation, but
probably owned by a venture capitalist company. Let's face it. I'm not feeling this.
At one point, they were like one of my favorite breweries, and then you know, it's easy to sort of jump on the bandwagon and go, oh, they've sold out their shit, but genuinely, their beers just seem to not only just become a bit naff, but they kind of disappeared from any sort of position of note in places where you can buy beer. Like they weren't stocked in the bottle shops anymore that I went to, or they're not even, and they're still in the supermarkets, obviously, which I assume where you got that from.
No, I didn't.
No?
I know full well that I didn't buy this from a shop. So it's either come from Beer 52, or it was one of the beers that I was given just before half term.
Yeah.
But I've sat here and I've wanted to drink this beer, and I wanted to drink it on the last pod, and I didn't end up drinking it, so it stayed in the fridge. But I've got to admit, I am wholly underwhelmed by the flavour profile from a beer that should have been absolutely top drawer.
But were you not expecting it to be shit anyway, no?
No, I was with the mango and the lime, I was expecting a real nice punch of flavour.
Right.
But to be fair, it's just fucking it's got a slight punch, but it's the disappearing act that the flavour makes pretty much immediately after you swallow it. It's not. I know it's underwhelming and disappointing. I'll be honest.
Sounds crap. Nail it, Chris. that just sums up your migraine. And
it just sums up this evening for me. Fucking Munich instead of Vienna. And then I'm getting shit really from all you cunts. I've got a migraine and I've not shit beer.
Right. Oh dear.
I'm gonna shut my camera off and go to fucking sleep.
We'll see you later. Just keep it all running.
Yeah. All right. Be quiet on your way out.
Close the door quietly.
Wankers.
I'm sure the after party will get better, Chris.
Yeah.
And you know, you can't blame Jimmy for choosing Munich over Vienna. What are you gonna do?
No,
I mean, it's personal preference. He's fucking wrong, but it's personal preference.
Simply so. What are you drinking anyway, Chris? What were you reviewing?
Sorry.
Here we go again.
Yeah,
the best beer he's ever tasted.
Merc Life Balance, which is a mango and lime hazy pale.
Brewed by Asahi.
Yeah,
that was the company I was looking for.
Is that Asahi?
Yeah. I think they're selling them.
Yeah. That's what Matt Curtis was telling us.
And 4Pure, who's also owned by the same company.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so I don't know where I got South African from. It's definitely not a South African company.
It was only about 4 years ago.
Well, do Asahi own Castle Brewing as well, which is the South African?
Well, they're in Dark Star as well, aren't they? Asahi,
Yeah.
Or maybe it's Kirin.
Could be. Anyway, either way, they're shit on the Chris. So,
well, whatever it is, I ain't fucking buying another can of that crap. So yeah.
Was it not very nice?
I was expecting a mango and lime party in my mouth, and what I got was a dreary 60-year-old strippogram.
No. That doesn't sound ideal, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, Jimmy. It doesn't.
What are you other guys drinking then?
Yeah. What else is everyone drinking?
Well, I'm still on the Unity loving here, so I went for Collision.
We're an exclusive for you guys. We're changing the name of Collision.
Oh,
rebranding it. Because even though it's one of the beers that we love the most, the beer itself not changing at all. And actually, it's the beer that I've changed the least. I've sort of tweaked everything else, but Collision kind of stayed extremely similar. Changed the yeast a couple of times. That's about it. But it does. The name has always been problematic for me, and so because we're all about things coming together in a really nice way, and Collision is something to coming together in a quite aggressive way. And so it's never really sat quite right with me. So we're just taking the opportunity this year to change it. We're going to call it. It's going to be called Only the Sea.
Can I just say that I disagree with that statement that a collision is always a bad thing? Because collisions produce photons. They produce the light with which we see.
Here we go. That's a bring in.
They produce stars. They created the planet. Collisions produce the oxygen that you're breathing, and you're saying it's always a bad thing. I mean,
I suppose it's more like connotations of collision are not always bad. But
I'm just pissing at my leg, mate. I'm just going to mute my mic and go back to sleep.
He had to go back on the side.
Well, anyway, back to my beer. I'm enjoying it. So
but the beer itself's not going to change at all. It's just we're going to change the name, and we want to bring a bit more of where we're situated into what we're doing. Like Conflux has it. So Conflux is just short for confluence, basically. So Southampton Water is the confluence of three rivers: the Test, the Hamble, and the Itchen. And so that's where the name Conflux came from. And so we want to just bring those two. They're the only permanent beers we have, and so we just wanted to bring that together a little bit more and make it work.
Yeah, it can even help. If you have a local connotation with things, it can help massively with sales. I know, was it the Air Brewing? No, was it? It was sorry, it was the Aaron Brewery, and he was telling us they changed it to some, the Rabbie Burns, type beer. And the sales, it was just like the plain ale before, and then it was the Rabbie's ale, and then all of a sudden, it was sales went through the roof on it.
Right, just sure. Hopefully that'll happen. It isn't necessarily why we're doing it. It's more of a kind of our own. Making sure that everything that we do has the vibe that we want to get across. So we're changing the artwork as well, so it's more. So the artwork for Conflux and now only the Sea is going to be a lot more in line with the more illustrative, heavy stuff that that Matt, our designer, is doing for everything else as well. So they don't look like a different range; it looks like a whole.
It flows.
Have you thought about calling it Saint FC?
Saint FC. We do a cask beer that we put on here for match days called St Mary's Pale.
Yeah.
So there is that.
That's made with
Chico.
That's made with Chico, is it? Yeah. Is it its own beer?
It's a Mosaic single hopped cask golden ale.
Oh, you're just getting some Mosaic into the football hooligan crowd.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we don't get hooligans in the tap room. It's always such a nice vibe in here on match days. Actually, it's lovely. It's a real family atmosphere. But but it's it's nice to have it. We love having our one hand pull that we occasionally put.
So we're literally right now half a kilometre from the stadium.
If that, yeah. Just around
probably
corner,
that
5 minute walk at most.
Yeah, so stadium's literally just down the road, turn right, down a bit further. So match days are probably pretty.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah, they're good.
Busy day for you.
Yeah, it's one of the things that made us say yes to this location. To be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as it's your beer that I'm drinking, Jimmy, I guess I can take this opportunity just to pick your brain a little bit about sort of how you do this kind of beer.
You can
obviously it's like all Mosaic and Columbus, and it's quite up my street in terms of like having a little bit more bitterness than your typical kind of hazy IPA, and that you're definitely getting quite that kind of like dankness from the Columbus coming through. So do you is that still like just Whirlpool and dry hop, or have you got anything a little bit earlier in the boil?
Just Whirlpool and dry hop.
So is it just the quantity of the hops that is maybe making it a little bit more, or like the higher alpha on the Columbus?
Entirely, yeah. And it's so most of our kind of hazy style beers that we do, we Whirlpool about 77, 78, and that's Whirlpooled at 82, 83.
Yeah.
And we use more hot side hops in Collision than we do any other beer we make.
So how do you sort of work as far as like IBUs and stuff go like that? Are you worried about that, or do you just sort of base the recipe on like what that
what it tastes like?
What it tastes like 100%. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, where we're whirlpooling low, we don't. If we're doing it hot side, those alpha acids are going to make a big difference. If we're doing it not cooled whirlpool, but where we're cooling our whirlpool, it makes so much less. It's really more about quantity.
Are you combining the two hops together there in the whirlpool and the dry hop?
Yeah, so it's like
one or the other.
It's a little bit of Columbus and a lot of Mosaic, both dry hop and whirlpool. So there's both.
And everything
what sort of
No, so hot cider is Mosaic and Columbus.
Okay.
So it's probably about 85% Mosaic, 15% Columbus.
And what's your sort of like grams per litre as far as like whirlpooling versus dry hopping on this type of beer as well?
The whirlpool on that is 5 grams a litre.
Okay.
And the dry hop is 10. Conflux is 3 grams per litre. Well, most of our whirlpool hops and hazy beers are about 3 grams per litre.
So the difference in like bitterness, which is quite apparent between those two beers, as far as what you do differently between the two of them, is that just like the quantity in the whirlpool, or
quantity and temperature?
So you're whirlpooling a bit cooler for the conflux as well?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. So we whirlpool about 77 for conflux and about 83, something like that. For
how long's the whirlpool go on for?
So we bring it down to temp. We add the hops. We whirlpool we spin it. So we've got a whirlpool kettle. So we spin it for 20 minutes, and then we let it sit for 20 minutes, and then we cast out.
Do you think the sort of the level of difference you get with what sounds like a fairly small difference in temperature is repeatable on sort of like a homebrew scale, or do you think that's more?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah, for sure. I think those. I mean, certainly we've noticed here on a. Oh, you've minimised it all by accident.
We're still here.
We're still here. Don't worry, guys. We're still here.
Yeah, I really think those. So I think you do get. We were whirlpooling Collision at 85, and we just got a little bit more juice from bringing that down a couple of degrees.
Okay, that's really interesting. Because personally, I've always sort of
80.
thought, oh, as long as it's sort of 80-ish or below, I'll probably be all right. And I think, I guess for home brewing, one of the issues you have is it drops so quickly that if you don't, you're probably transitioning through quite a few temperatures, like while you're.
And you won't have like insulation on your kettle.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, like I might start at like 80, but then by the end of it, I'm down to maybe 75 or even lower than that.
Yeah, totally.
And if I'm trying to hit sort of like 80, I might start at 85, and then it sort of
ours
settles out at that point.
Our kettle holds its temperature pretty well. So it's really what we.
Do you think, like, as far as where's the sweet spot? So like for conflux, where's the sweet spot for you as far as that like really soft? 77. Okay.
3 grams a litre, 77 degrees, and we a lot of our special release IPAs that we do are 3 grams a litre, 77 degrees as well. And that's where we really like it. And then, so the difference is if it's a pale ale, it'll be obviously lower original gravity.
Yeah.
So you've got less viscosity to your wort, so you're going to get a different level of extraction of things. But we'll dry hop our pale ales a little bit less, and we'll dry hop our IPAs a bit more.
And dry hopping temperature, what's your sort of
15 degrees we dry hop. So we'll wait until it's past VDK. So once it's past diacetyl tests and the rest of it, we'll drop it down to 15 degrees. Next day we'll crop or dump the yeast depending on what we want to do with it. And then we'll the day after that we'll do another dump, dry hop whilst bubbling with CO2 to make sure that we don't get any oxygen ingress, and it also helps really mix the hops up as well.
Yeah.
Cap it off, hold it at 15. The next day we'll do another bubble and another dump and drop it down to 0.
Okay, so was that 48 hours at 15 total, and then cold crash essentially?
24 hours on the dry hops before we start pulling it all off and cold crashing it. That's all you need.
So cool and fast essentially is the approach.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean you don't.
Did you ever do like longer dry hop periods at the beginning?
Yeah, before we played with different ones and just found that we were getting the best clarity of aroma and flavour from a shorter one. We weren't pulling off any undesirable. And 15 degrees is our kind of happy spot in terms of a balance between a little fruity and the more kind of piney and other nice things you get from the hops.
Yeah, I see quite a lot. Well, certainly in the kind of like homebrew scene, there's a few people sort of shouting about doing the really cold kind of dry hopping temperatures of, you know, sort of like down like cold crashing temperature, basically sort of 4 degrees
totally.
or whatever. Have you guys tried that out at all? Or
we haven't tried it. I know breweries that have, and I've tasted beers that do that, and I think that there's good things that happen with that.
Okay. What would you say is the difference between that and sort of what your
regime I think is? You need to rouse those hops a lot more. So you need to keep them held in solution. It's a lot harder to make them stay in solution at those temperatures because everything just out.
Yeah, it wants to drop to the bottom.
But I think if you're using a fruity yeast, like if you're doing like a kind of more West Coast leading, or if you're using like a Chico yeast or something like that, then that works really well. But you do need to work harder to keep those hops in solution to get that extraction at those temperatures. But yeah, I mean, it's a different kind of thing. You get less dank character at that temperature. But if you're using a fruity yeast, then I don't think there's a benefit to it, really, because it all melds together and is lovely.
Have you tried? I was reading a little bit this week about mash hopping. Have you tried much of that?
No, because hops are toxic to most animals.
Oh, okay.
And so where we send all our grain to
you send it to a
goat and cattle farmer.
Okay.
He's not going to be that happy if you wipe out his whole herd, is he?
And then like, we get...
sorry.
Here you go. Take the free animal feed. Oh, sorry, the goats are dead.
Imagine. I'm like super happy with the hop character we get. You know, so.
Yeah. Why change it? Right?
I mean, we experiment with lots of different things all the time with our special release IPAs to get more extraction and the rest of it. But I don't think that. I think that mash hopping is one of those things a bit overrated. You know, if you want to get that real West Coast resinous saturation, then like first wort hopping does the thing that you want it to do. You know.
Well, talking of that. We're drinking your
West Coast IPA that has no first wort hops.
All right.
It has isomerized hop extract at the start of the boil.
So
and
like
then,
that what do they call it?
It's flex.
Flex. Yeah, flex.
And which I think actually has a really good flavour and quite a nice.
I used a bit of that in a West Coast IPA for the Brew Club recently, actually, and it's fun trying to get a measured amount of that out in a very small
I can imagine,
syringe.
Tiny
like,
bit
sticky as fuck. It's like it sticks to everything as well.
It's not a
like,
nice thing to use. It's horrible.
Touch anything with it, and it's like it's stained and stuck
we have
to
to
it.
clean.
Forever.
We have to do an extra full on like cleaning our kettle.
Yeah, how do you remove the residue from that? Because it seems to like just taint everything around the boil line when I used it.
A lot of caustic and a lot of scrub.
Yeah, a lot of elbow grease.
But you know, it's worth it. I think like we get such a nice character from it, and so our West Coast IPAs are very much more on the contemporary West Coast end of things, I guess. When we did the Rainbow Project in 2019, we worked with Alvarado. We got matched up with Alvarado Street, who are in Monterey, California, and we built a nice relationship. We're going to go out there later on this year, hopefully, if we can afford it. I think we're probably going to be able to. It should be fine. And we've got a really nice relationship with those guys, and we've done a few collaborations with them since Rainbow Project, and they pretty much taught us how to brew West Coast IPAs again. You know, because my idea of West Coast IPA was like old school West Coast IPA. You know, a little bit of Crystal, a little bit of Munich, you know, like and a load of Centennial and Chinook and Simcoe, you know, like that more caramelly, slightly more amber coloured, very dank, heavy.
That's very trad.
Exactly. That's how I learned to brew West Coast IPA. Right. No one in California, like hardly anyone in California, certainly not the modern breweries, are making West Coast IPA like that. Pliny the Elder is like one malt. It's just pale malt. And these guys are going for that, but they're using some really great techniques. So they're doing cooler whirlpools, and they're dry hopping at 2 stages. So so the way we do our West Coast IPAs now, this is a blend of Pilsner malt and extra pale with a little bit of wheat, just for mouthfeel and head retention. And we use a bit of flex, bit of extracts at the start of the boil, and then we whirlpool at 85 degrees with whatever hops we want to use. So we don't go, what are the West Coast IPA hops? So we've done like a single hop Talus West Coast IPA, and so they are really pale, but we go to about 45, 50 IBUs ish on them. Sometimes more, 60, 70.
Sorry, is this tilt that we're talking about?
That's right. Yeah. So tilt is like
I've got a can of that in the fridge. I'm very tempted to run out and grab it now.
So that is calculated IBU 65. So what calculated real IBUs are totally different.
Owen, what do you reckon? Should I go and get it?
Yeah, I think you should.
I mean, I'm putting you in a slightly awkward position here because you're sat right next to him. You're not just
no, I'm absolutely. I was the one that suggested to Jimmy, let's go and get some tilt, because I saw, I'm an avid follower of Unity's social media. I saw this last week.
It's all right. Just use the hand signals we agreed before if you don't like it.
But yeah, so this is Vic Secret, Citra. And Amarillo.
Amarillo.
And it's so we whirlpool hop at it's like 4 grams per litre whirlpool hop at 85.
I'm going to get it.
25 EU. Yeah.
He's off. He's gone.
There you go.
He's convinced. You got him.
And then, we dry hop it at like 12 grams a litre or something.
Well, it's almost like you're taking that kind of obviously a newer style West Coast grain bill, then adding like something that's going to add a little.
But is it newer style? Because you've got Pliny the Elder, which is like the OG double IPA.
Well, of course,
it's just all pale malt,
Well, fair dues, but it's not. It's not that crystal malt thing, right? Then you're adding flex, which is an interesting option, I guess, adding less of that vegetal kind of addition,
because something
and it's pin bright. Juice, I want basically what I want out of what we're going for in a contemporary West Coast IPA is totally clean fermenting yeast, so Chico or something similar, completely clean fermenting, pin bright. We fine it with vegan friendly silicate finings.
Okay.
To make sure we get that clarity, and bitterness, and then whatever hot character we want on top of that. We feel like.
But you kind of almost like,
to me, it's bitterness, clarity, cleanliness.
You're almost driving for that kind of almost in the same way as you might do with your New England stuff. Yeah. You're almost driving for that hop aroma and that juiciness,
really aromatic.
So you've got that punchy,
crisp,
hot,
cleanliness.
bitterness at the front.
Yeah. We were craving bitterness for quite a while. We're like, I want to make some like bitter beers, but we still wanted that massive
French stubby,
juicy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've got 0 like IBUs or something. Like we were at the time we were all missing. It wasn't West Coast IPA we're missing; it was bitterness.
But what about the water? Do you not want the water profile as well to be the sulfate heavy as well, rather than that kind of soft water sort of? Yeah.
So our Westies are they're like 2 to 1 sulfate. Yeah. Sulfate 2, chloride 1.
So reasonably balanced.
like
nothing too crazy.
No, not like I guess traditional West Coast IPA is like 4-1 or
4
something.
to 1, yeah.
Like, it's pretty hefty. So yeah, it's not because we still want it to be quite.
Can get
still
almost
want it to
get a
be
bit
quite
raspy,
juicy.
right?
Yeah.
And if you are going for that juiciness,
But it's clear as day and bitter and really dry.
Oh, but it's beautiful
and refreshing.
There is an interesting kind of aroma on it, though. Like, it's
we dry hop during fermentation with it.
Out the kind of the hops are in there, Citra, Merlot, and Secret. Like,
are you getting that? Are you getting the orange sort of tangerine thing?
Kind of getting like a bit of a sort of almost Simcoe cat pissy sort of.
The Big Secret's well pissy, man.
Is it?
Yeah.
Big Secret,
it's like quite actually. Wow. People talk like cat piss. I'm like, I've never had a cat, so I don't really know, but. Like what I remember from when I worked in wine, people would talk about Sauvignon Blanc being really pissy. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what it is, but I really like whatever it is. If I get a cat, maybe I'll just let it like piss all over my carpet so my house smells really nice.
Yeah.
I mean that's obviously not going to happen.
Jimmy, we've all got kinks, all right?
Because you'll need to burn those carpets.
Child's piss smells like. It definitely doesn't smell like child's piss.
What did I miss? How did we get to child's piss?
We got onto the subject of piss.
The idea of that catty aroma that people get, but
from
it turns out Vic Secret can be like really
quite
catty
and
quite catty, and I'm getting that aroma on the nose.
We have a Simcoe moment there. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. So a lot of the flavour we get from the biotransformation and hopping. So we will. The cool thing is, if you go into beer and brewing, if you sign up to Brewing Magazine's portal, you pay a certain amount each month. There's tutorials with different brewers.
Yeah,
and some of it's aimed. A lot of it's aimed at home brewers as much as it is commercial brewers. And my boy JC from Alvarado Street does a tutorial, and he's basically talking about the way that I learned to brew West Coast IPA from him.
Yeah.
And that is so we dry hop at knockout. So we dry hop in the fermenter at the same time we put yeast, and we use an enzyme, a biotransformation enzyme that makes the yeast react with those hops to create those other flavor compounds that you can get. And so about a third of our dry hopping is done at that point, and then the other third is done at 15 degrees after fermentation. The other 2/3, sorry. And you get so much flavor from that. It's not just aroma; it's loads of flavor too.
And you were telling me earlier, like before we started the podcast, about something you add to avoid diacetyl.
ALDC.
Yeah.
So it's just really a compound that stops the yeast producing diacetyl byproduct. So diacetyl is like yeast when it's eating. So we all know that CO2 and alcohol are yeast excretions, right? Mm-hmm. And the yeast doesn't just excrete those two things; it excretes lots of other things as well. And one of them is diacetyl. But most of those things, joyfully enough, the yeast eats again.
Yeah,
we're talking about the yeast eating its own shit. Basically, is what happens. As it starts to run out of nutrients, towards the end of fermentation, it starts to run out of the nutrients and the wort and the rest of it. It starts reabsorbing, essentially eating the other things that it's produced. I guess it's like if you're in the desert and you started drinking your own wee to survive.
Doesn't work out well in the long run, does it? Eventually.
No, which is when the yeast dies.
You hope you get
enough.
Yeah. So maybe that's a terrible analogy. We've had a couple of I literally spent the last 2 nights in Cornwall and Devon drinking with Verdant and other cool places where we've been. So I've had a very heavy couple of days.
You could probably do without this bullshit, couldn't you?
Could I got a slightly less less moderated version of me.
Could I just jump in?
So, yeah.
Given
Go on, Chris.
the prevalence of me to what ALDC actually is.
Yeah, go on.
It's alpha acetolactate decarboxylase. It's a simple enzyme, and what it does is it removes the precursor, which turns into diacetyl. It has several other sort of benefits in that it can reduce the time that a beer is required to sit in a tank. It's a very, very straightforward. It's just a decarboxylase enzyme, and all it does is reduces the concentration of a precursor that turns into diacetyl. That's literally all it is. And that I've kind of been waiting for somebody to mention that for quite a long time. Hashtag fucking science. But it's amazing, and it's one of the. There's a lot of tools available to sort of the bigger brewers, the breweries, the professionals, for want of a better term, which aren't really made available to us as home brewers. We tend to have to rely more on procedural or methodological sort of correctors to our final product. And as much as this is going to sound like a horrible thing, we have to almost be more on the ball than the professionals do. Because they just squirt something in and it takes care of the problem. We have to kind of manage it out during the process. And Jimmy, I used to work in a brewery as well. I was head brewer for 6 months, so I know what you're going through, and I know.
6 months.
I know. Yeah, but the problem is Partners in Cleckheaton.
Okay, cool.
They had a visit from the tax man. Somebody had forgotten to pay him.
Oh Christ!
Yeah, and then we went 3 days before Christmas. That was a lovely Christmas present. And it it is what it is, mate. I'm a teacher and a technician, so it doesn't really matter. But the bottom line is there are a lot of things that are available, and if you know where to go to buy them as a home brewer, you can buy them.
Yeah. I think the malt miller do ALDC. They certainly do Aromazyme or something similar to Aromazyme. Yeah,
they do. But one of the places that I learned when I was working in the brewery was Murphy's. You can buy from Murphy's. You don't need a trade account to get anything from Murphy's.
Oh, they have got a little one on shop, haven't they? Actually?
Yeah. So you can buy whatever you want.
It's in a fucking big quantity, though. It takes us ages to get through a liter. We use such little ALDC in 20 hectoliters. Like we bought it's to the point where I think it goes out of date in 6 months, and so we won't finish it by the time it goes out of date.
I think if I'm remembering right off the top of
you
my
could probably do get a load of homebrewers together and you could all share.
You want to start repackaging that and selling it in homebrew?
I think it works. It works out.
I would be surprised if the don't have it, and if they don't, you could definitely get them to do it. But the great thing
grams per hectoliter that you dose it at, something like that.
Yeah, but the cool thing is that the reason why we use it isn't necessarily to reduce time or anything like that. It's to allow us to do more of the things that will give us more flavor and aroma. Rather than going, hey, look, this could, if we're dry hopping during fermentation, this could give us diacetyl problems down the line. So we're going to do this, that, and the other to mitigate for that. We can just go, I'll tell you what, I'm not even going to need to worry about that because I'm going to use ALDC and I'm going to chuck a fuck ton of hops at it and know for a fact that the beer in everyone's hand doesn't have a fault and is going to be absolutely delicious.
Yeah,
which is so essential when you're doing 4,000 cans at a time.
Yeah, it helps you to remove those procedural steps that it's used to have to do before that arrived, right?
It's absolute peace of mind.
Yeah.
Because diacetyl can be a bit of a roulette sometimes. However much you do, I've had a beer that we've done forced diacetyl tests and stuff on, and it's came back like sensory negative because we only have the technology to do it sensory, and then it's down the line because we did it we biotransformed dry hopped during fermentation dry hopped.
Yeah,
and it's we've got the tiniest amount of hop creep, and Diet's just kicked off a little bit, and it's just a touch of it, but enough to really fuck me off, and enough that it isn't as delicious as it would have been without it.
It's fucking infuriating, this kind of
that's cool.
biochemical processes.
I mean, but there's when there's great natural enzymes available that you can use. That
True.
we use aromazyme to make Chico, which doesn't naturally biotransform to get more aroma whilst we still have really clean fermentation. And then we use another enzyme to make sure that biotransformation thing that's happening doesn't give us problems later down the line. So it's different things. Like, it's like a brute IPA thing that was happening for a little while, and that's all enzyme based. But
did you make
we never made a brute IPA, but I did make a brute. We did a collab with a bar in I think they're in Leeds. I can't remember. Cool, it's awful. I should really remember. It was quite a long time ago, maybe about 4 years ago, and we did a brute, like a Belgian brute, like a champagne style beer.
Okay.
The idea was it would go really, really well with like cave-aged hard cheese. It was like, this place did like meat and cheese and stuff like that. It was like a thing, And so we're like, and it was when we were only 10 hec, and so we're like,
amazing.
Let's make. It's essentially like a Belgian golden ale, but dried out to zero.
Let's make a beer that really matches
extremely specific
cheese.
Yeah, and you know what? It sold like it didn't sell like hotcakes at all. It was really but it was like it was a champagne, so it was like a sparkling. It was really dry, really pale. We just used extra pale malt in there, and we used like Hilletab Blanc. To get that finish note, and we used Boston to ferment it post. But we used that enzyme in the mash, so it was like went literally down to minus nothing. Yeah. And so it's complete, like 100% dry.
Bone dry. Yeah. So you take a sip and it's like...
no, because it's balanced, So it's, and like Boston produces some glycerol, which like it gives you mouthfeel and the rest of it. So it's fine. But, so it was good. It's good. I thought the beer was great. But and they thought the beer was great, but just not many other people
did it go with the cheese?
Absolutely perfectly. Yeah. I was very happy with
it.
So that's the only time I dabbled in the brute vibe. But
so just picking your brain again on the
I tapped room closed 20 minutes ago, and so I'm just figuring out if I can pinch a cigarette off my taproom.
I'll cover food
supervisor before she locks up.
I'll cover food.
But we're going to be here we're going to be here out of hours. Nothing like having your boss pinch a fag off you.
Any chance I could pinch a fag? Yes, you're my boss. Yeah,
but are you going to stay here and answer the question or what?
What was the question?
I haven't answered it yet, to be fair. But
you haven't asked it yet. You were waiting to ask the question.
I was about to ask the question.
Absolutely waffling on.
Yeah, it was. We were on about cigarettes. Sorry, I was just going to say. Obviously, like with this, the West Coast version and the two before. What's your approach as far as water profile in terms of the difference between those? Because if I want to really geek out on the recipe construction, like, are you going for the typical flip between the sulfate and chloride ratios?
A little bit, not quite as heavy. I think I did say earlier, but
set 2-1.
So we do. So we keep our calcium at base, and where we are in Southampton, unfortunately,
so your base water is basically straight out the tap, right? So you're not like
it runs through a filter, but it doesn't pull out the.
It comes out in pills.
So you're using Epsom salts.
So our base water is 120 calcium.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's like 30 more than I want it to be. But you can use that, and so like traditional West Coast IPA is like 250 calcium, right? That's like, and like when they say like traditional water treatment for a bitter, it's really high calcium. But so we do everything to keep that where it is, and so when we add sulfites, we add magnesium sulfite. And we don't ever add calcium chloride. We just add table salt, sodium chloride. And so we, with our New England, with like our hazy stuff, we do about 3 to 1, 2.5 to 3 to 1 like favouring chloride.
And what does your total
And
numbers
West
work out
Coast,
at then for that?
I can't remember exactly. But
I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
ppm.
We
Yeah.
don't yeah. So
This is all recorded. Don't worry. Don't need to make notes.
our sulfate is normally about 80, 90. Sulfate's normally about 80, 90, so you can work it out backwards from there.
Yeah.
But with West Coast, we go 2 to 1 sulfate to chloride. So our sulfate goes up, but we keep the chloride. We still make sure that we've got a reasonable amount of chloride because I want to still have like accentuate that juiciness a little bit.
Yeah.
So instead of like 300 parts per million chloride, we're at about 120, 150.
Do you think your pH has any bearing on those like sort of varying styles at all, or is that just sort of you just sort of shoot for a standard level?
We shoot for we deliberately keep our pHs to about 5.4, so a little bit higher than is I guess recommended.
Yeah.
Because that gives us a little bit more body, a little bit more going on, and also we find if we're going for that pH, we get better, like healthier fermentation than we do than if we're lower. I can't tell you why, but we do. 5.3 between 5.3 and 5.4. If we're in a lager, we go 5.4 to 5.5 because we just get much better fermentation.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's mad because my beer's
as far as attenuation, are we talking about there for better fermentation or?
Yeah, so we get exactly. Yeah. But like we get but also in terms of like healthier, like quicker, more you can tell when your fermentation isn't as healthy as it could be when your gravity just starts to like tick down towards the end. If it's like taking ages to finish, then it's not been that happy and healthy. When it's like done, I'm done. It's like boom, done, happy. Like it doesn't go like half a point.
Yeah, when you're trying to eke out that last few 3 or 4
that's
points,
never great.
Struggling,
that means that that it's not had all the things we wanted.
Yeah.
Do
you think pH is a big factor in that then?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I can't. I'm not a science. I'm quite a holistic brewer in a lot of ways, and so I can't tell you what the science behind that is. Your man could probably.
Well, no, you're basing it on your experience. He's had his hand up for 5 minutes. So, Chris, over to you on the effects of pH on yeast health. Sit back and relax for half an hour.
Essentially, it comes down to active sites of enzymes and inhibition of certain processes due to a higher or lower pH. So if you've got more acid in there, it's going to affect the state, the actual shape of the active site of some of the enzymes. Essentially, they can't eat as fast because they can't digest as fast. And that's putting it into very human terms. But it all comes down to a higher acidity within it is going to be inhibitory. Sorry, by a higher pH, I mean a lower pH within it is going to be more inhibitory to certain enzymes, which are the main enzymes which do the metabolism of the sugar, the alcohol dehydrogenase, and all those sorts of things, and the other enzymes which actually. It's enzymes. I'm just going to leave it there. I don't want to confuse everyone, but it's the shape of the enzymes.
But the interesting thing is you can do an iodine test and you have full conversion, but you don't know what you've got, what the makeup of that is.
Exactly. Yes.
And that's what. So you can, we've played with it. We've got all the bits and bobs to it, but we played with going. Oh, could we only do a half an hour mash time? It's like at certain temperatures, we probably could. And we've done iodine test and it's fully converted. But we're like, well, what has it got in it? But I'm quite happy to let it go another half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour to make sure that anything that's still going on has done the going on that it wants to do. You know,
iodine tests don't
again
work
talking
as well
about
as people think they do, though.
Yeah, they probably don't. And you're looking at one part of the mash of like when our mash tun is like 6 foot wide, you know, so it's like, you know,
do you not have a mixer?
No, we don't know. Our kit's pretty English trad kit. It's got a couple of little bits of automate, like not automation. Yeah, I guess there's a couple of little bits of automation and things that make life a bit easier and ways that we can produce slightly more modern beer with what we've got. But it is fundamentally a single infusion mash, trad, gas-fired kettle. You know.
But that's the best way to go, because if you're not brewing beer the old-fashioned way, clearly you're doing it wrong. Said no one ever. But it's this is the thing. It's literally, it's clearly working for you. It's clearly producing you some absolutely banging beers. And on that point, I want to know, when are you going to make a Marzen or a Märzen?
Well, we might do. Now we're kicking.
See, now I like this man.
You can consult.
Well,
you can
he said mine.
There you go.
I mean, I like Bates some.
There's a lot of ums.
I know there is.
I'm
No,
not entirely
no.
convinced it's going to be out.
No, seriously as well. So, Alex Sonkosa from Lost and Grounded is everyone knows him as a superb lager producer. His Marzen was great. Bates from Duration, his Marzen that he makes every year, I think is absolutely superb. And so I've got good friends that make good Marzen, and I think sometimes why would I make something when I know that I can get it really good from someone else? Like, and they nail it and they really concentrate on that. If I was going to do it, it'd be like a one-off thing. So, but we are just this. So, towards the end of last year, we bought 2 new tanks, and people are like, "Oh, cool! Does that mean you can produce loads more beer?" It's like, no, it just means it's going to make a lot more lager. You know, but and anyone knows that lager takes a lot of time. So yeah, we've been able to increase production slightly by doing that, but it does mean we can make a lot of more lager. And so we've now got 2 tanks that are completely held up with lager constantly. That means that if we wanted to brew Marzen, we could, but we'll wait and see how things go with what we do. I mean, I'll never say never really to some things. I say never to, like milkshake IPA.
High five.
Thank you. Well, we don't use that. We have a policy to not use lactose.
Just because of a question in the chat that's just come up, I might have missed this earlier, but again, coming back to the water chemistry for the lagers, are you doing anything to sort of drop that level of calcium back for the lagers?
No, you can't drop the calcium.
So you're just using the
we haven't got RO. We haven't got any other way of
no RO, no anything else.
So just what we've got, and we make it work. So there's ways and means. Like we.
What do you do for your lagers then? That's to if there's anything to counteract that?
Oh, we had very little. So we use quite a lot of lactic acid, but we use with lactic acid. If we were going to use 100% lactic acid instead of blend, so otherwise, often to acidify our work, we use a blend of sulfuric and hydrochloric acid and lactic acid and lactic. Basically AMS with lactic acid to top it up.
Yeah.
So we calculate our ions with what we get with AMS, and we stop at the point that it adds, and then we add lactic to add that extra buffer to get our mash pHs we need. But with our lagers, we add much more lactic acid because we want a much cleaner ion profile, much leaner ion profile. Yeah. But if you use too much lactic acid, then you can really taste it. And with our lagers, you can actually taste it a little bit. But it's to the point where I'm just about happy with that. Like really traditional Bavarian lagers, when you did the Lost and Grounded thing when you got your lactic tank, and you add that to your mash.
But like traditionally, if you look at like acidulated malt and stuff, then that's kind of the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
like Donzoko, it's exactly it's lactic acid. Donzoko have their own lactic culture that they use that they add to the mash and things like that. And but at the end of the day, lactic acid tastes like lactic acid. It's obviously going to get a bit more flavour if it's from a pure culture or like your own culture that you've grown up on malt and all the rest of it. You'll get more complexities of flavour from the other things that are happening at the same time. We're using just food grade lactic acid, but I quite like that, like just about perceptible lactic bite in our lagers, and I think that adds to the refreshing character of them. But we still have to use a little bit of other acids in there too. So yeah, we're looking at I guess our sulfites and chlorides are 40s, 50s for that. But yeah, our calcium's still up there. But we've learned to love our calcium because calcium will add. What calcium does, it doesn't add any chalky taste to our beers. At 120, it won't really. If you're going like 200, if you haven't got the sweetness of caramels and all the rest of it to balance it out and loads of IBUs, you're going to notice chalkiness.
I mean, to be fair,
you
most people
tasted that Helles, right? Was there any?
Yeah.
Did you taste any calcium? That's 120 calcium on that.
I didn't pick up any like paracetamol kind of vibes going on.
To be fair, most people when they're talking about lagers, it's more about the low levels of the sulfate and the chloride usually, as opposed to the calcium, and obviously bicarbonate taking that out with the acid. So if you're bringing those down, like, I mean, how much difference? This is something that I don't really know. Like, how much difference does that high level of calcium make? Is it just
to my palate? So I think our beers show really well on keg. As like conflux, like pintable. I think our beers are. Some people, we always get this annoying thing where people say thin, which I'm like, you need to elaborate on what you mean by thin. I guess people mean just not thick, which is like fine. I don't want my stout to be thick necessarily, but I don't want it to be thin. I want it to be very drinkable, and I think that's because of the calcium levels, and so because it has the a palate drying capacity to it,
Okay.
So that calcium
so it can be a little bit like a high sulfate ratio to an extent.
Potentially, exactly. Yeah. So it does dry off the palate. It doesn't increase the bitterness necessarily, but it does dry off the palate, which means that if you're having a pint of one of our moderate ABV beers, actually it makes it's really great.
It's more of a mouthfeel.
Yeah.
It's more of a mouthfeel thing than a bitterness thing.
Yeah. So our beers can have a slightly drier, slightly more quenching vibe.
Yeah, because I think
even when our gravities are really high, our finishing gravities are high and all the rest of it.
Yeah. As far as water profile goes, like everyone talks about the chloride to sulfate thing, but like calcium is more regarded as just like, you need a minimum amount for yeast health, and then nobody really says what it does flavor wise after that. So that's interesting to hear that like perspective on it. So
if you want to make really, really, really juicy IPAs, keep your calcium to like 85, 90.
That's still quite high though.
Is it?
Well,
fuck knows. We've got 120, so I've never really worried about how low it could potentially
I think that's probably like.
So it's like
the thing is,
I reckon that's pretty standard for most people out the tap. Like that's in the ballpark.
In England, when you're using our
not in like super soft Scotland.
Chatting to Verdant down in fucking Penryn, and I was like, "What's your calcium there?" It's like, in the teens, mate.
Totally.
Fuck you.
Because the thing is, like, he was like, but at the same time, he said that they bring it up to not far away from what ours is.
Yeah, because it creates a healthy yeast fermentation.
Exactly. Yeah. I would love to be able to go down to 90.
It's quite hard to add, though. Yeah, I've found.
Yeah.
Without knocking everything else out of kind of target range, and that's why actually I mentioned it in terms of. When you're using RO, it's sometimes your calcium level is a bit tricky to
Okay,
get to the right level.
Get to the happy time.
Does everyone else find that?
What was the
No.
question?
I know.
Okay,
we'll
I'm going to
move
go
on.
and chat to the taproom staff.
No, 'cause-
Sort of hang around before I,
I was gonna say, like,
I mean, normally they're out of here by 20 past, but they're hanging around. I feel guilty that they might be hanging
Do
around
it.
because I'm still here.
Yeah. But the calcium in mine's like 11. It's...
All right, go away, soft water boy. You have no input on
The
this.
one thing that I've discovered,
Andy left the chat.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been
soft water Andy is out.
Go on, Chris.
Well, one of the things that I've been working on when it comes to the IPLs, and one of the things that I've changed over the 7 planned, but 6 actually brewed versions, is I've been to try and get that, and I've talked about it a lot, that mouth wetting sensation of a beer. So your mouth feels wet when you drink it. It doesn't feel dry at all. One of the things that I've done is I've reduced the metal ions specifically. So the calcium, the magnesium, the sodium, I've reduced it from where I used to run, which is 75 to 80. And I've reduced it gradually down and down and down and down and down. And I've settled at 50. And I've never really gone above 50. And one thing that I have found with that, when it comes to the softer beers, the juicier beers, that I hate that fucking word juicy, but the juicier beers, is the lower you can get it, below what I've read is the perception threshold of 60, the wetter the beer feels, the juicier the flavors are.
Citrus.
Sorry, I can't get over this wetter the beer feels.
It's a strange thing to describe, but I can't think of another word.
I love how wet your beer is.
Yeah, there's a definite taste of wetness on this beer that's really doing it for me.
I can't think of another word that does it, Tricky. I can't. I mean, I could use moist.
This beer is so moist.
I'll use moist.
You've got a lot of compound. It doesn't feel like it's, if it's that kind of chalky sort of thing, then it's gonna be lit.
I think maybe this is just the way that you're describing like
the English water,
the mouthfeel of it in terms of like whether it's highly mineral, like.
Yeah. Are you still nerding out on water treatment?
It probably is the way that I'm describing it.
How do you describe a beer that's like really high minerally tasting? Do you say it's more minerally? Is that even a word? I don't know.
It's a difficult descriptor.
I know, because it's dry, right? So dry and wet.
Is that the opposite of like a wet beer? I don't know.
Yeah, are any of your beers, do you ever drink a beer and go, that's
really wet?
Your beers have been so wet tonight.
I know, I'm going to start thinking about that though.
We've mostly been having a laugh.
No, great.
You're not going to like take that as a compliment usually, though, are you? Like your beer is proper wet.
What did your beer? It's like saying, "What's your beer taste like?" It's quite beery.
Yeah.
Well,
how do you describe it though? I mean, what other descriptor can you use?
I guess
I think that's what we're trying to get to. Like, what is the descriptor other than wet? Because wet's not working.
You've got sweet and dry, haven't
you?
You've got sweet and dry.
It's proper dripping, that beer. It's proper dripping.
What's the opposite of sweet? Savoury. Yeah, but beers never go savoury, so...
I don't know. If you had pulp this year.
No, I haven't had pulp this year.
Not sweet.
When I was at Verdant, I was like, have you got any left? And they're like, no. Like, did you like it? So they were like, well, we had it once. I think, like, I don't know.
No. Tastes like fresh onions.
Oh, man, the beer that we did have from them that blew our absolute fucking mind. It was something water. I can't remember what the first couple of words were. But there were 2 words, and the last word was water.
Sounds like a wet beer to me.
It was very wet. But it was fucking genius.
Must have been proper moist if they had water in the title.
Talking about water profile, I think it's a collaboration with what's the Canadian brewery that's got the cool
Damp Brewery?
No,
they make watery beers.
Quite like over here. And like each label's like different artwork for different artists and stuff. Anyway, that brewery, I think it's a collaboration with them. And they matched their water profile for their hazy beers, and theirs was like what was it? James said, I don't know. It didn't tell me I couldn't tell anyone, so tell the public. was like 180 sulfite to 150 chloride, and it was so soft and so lovely, and like, but it was all Sabro in the whirlpool, and then Citra Nelson and dry hop. And honestly,
I might have actually bought that.
So
beer,
good,
like with the order of your
something,
beers.
something water.
Hang on a minute.
Hang on a minute. Me and my brew and that were just like, fuck, this is like one of the best IPAs I've had in so long. And we basically came down to the idea that hops like Sabro and Talus and Cashmere, they're really coconut heavy. Just in the whirlpool, you get none of that coconut, really. You get all the other lovely things there.
You get base layer.
Yeah. And then dry hop it with other things that are complementary.
We've been having a very similar.
Written in water.
Yeah, man.
Very similar kind of line of thought on the podcast, actually, around Talus and Sabro.
Wait a minute, sir. Yeah, I do like Sabro hot side, or like just a touch of it dry hop, but I love Talus.
We see it as like more of a structural hop.
Yeah.
To lay other things on top of.
It's seasoning.
Seasoning.
Yeah, it's seasoning. Yeah. Who on earth is calling the brewery at 11:15 on a Saturday? My taproom supervisors decided to actually answer it.
Honestly, that's probably one of our viewers who's managed to get on and find your number.
Yeah,
they're just phoning up to piss you off.
They're bringing up to say, "Can I have your wettest beer, please?" So,
yeah.
Hello, caller.
It's probably someone on Saturday night in Southampton.
What question have you got for Jimmy?
Southampton's not very good for late night drinking, so it's probably someone going, "Oh, you guys still open?" And we're like, "No, we closed 45 minutes ago." Our tap room closes at 10. I'm surprised the tap room stuff's still there. They must have just been having a nice time. Normally they're out of here by 20 past 10. Yeah.
You're doing well.
They asked me what doors they want me to lock. They want them. I want them to lock.
All right.
And
we'll lock up.
Well, we're going to lock the front door.
I'm sure we'll do it.
We'll have another beer
after another beer.
Okay.
Anyway,
yeah.
I think
break out the tippers. Owen needs.
I did say that I was going to stop at 10 so I could go home.
You did, didn't you?
And
yeah,
I'm impressed.
I think
we're now at
we at the end.
Yeah. Well, I'm up for another beer.
To be fair, I think that's a really good point for us to.
I like the vibe of this podcast. Is that you guys
should
just
we
like
wrap up
like
the podcast?
It's just like a rambling chat of like dudes drinking beers.
Yeah, you know something?
That's just how we roll.
That's our USP, man.
Welcome to the format.
There we are.
It's a great format.
It is. I mean, I feel like it's a comfort zone for me for sure.
Yeah, it's like being at the pub, right? It's like being at
you're more than welcome to return.
A friendly pub, having some beers, chatting, brewing.
There you go. Yeah.
Instead of like, let's have a Q&A with Jimmy.
No, we've got empty glasses, though.
We have.
Right, before you guys run off, can we just say ta-da to everybody? And I'll open it up. I'll post the links to the live chat and everything, and we can get a few of the regulars in. But other than that, guys, thanks very much for joining us. And Jimmy, thank you.
Yes,
you've been a superstar, mate.
Thanks so much, Jimmy. It's been
awesome,
dude.
It's been a pleasure.
Even though you're not going to make me a Marzen, and you like Munich instead of Vienna.
Will they do an IPL?
Well, like we should take the moment just to sort of plug Unity and for everyone that's listened, is like,
absolutely, definitely
go and check them out and buy some of their beer because it's bloody good.
You can buy all that if you're not local.
All three of them are awesome.
If you're not local, you can go to unitybrewingco.com and buy it. We sell. It's more often than not next day delivery, apart from when we're going down to Cornwall for party.
This week excluded.
Like nationally, so we everywhere in the UK we distribute to.
Who do you use as your courier?
We use several different couriers.
Do you use DPD? Because if you don't, I'm not buying any.
We do, yeah.
That's all right then. Yeah. Sold.
Chris is ordering them right now.
That's it. I'm gonna go and tap some buttons.
He loves that half cut beer order.
I'm sure that Unity is on Facebook. You're on Instagram. You'll be
Unity, at Unity Brewing Co.
Listen, Jimmy needs like how many more Instagram followers do you
let's have a
You
look.
need 3.
It might, no, it's like it was 30.
30.
It might have changed now.
He needs
Hold on.
30 more
There we
Instagram
go.
followers to get to
Where is it now?
10,000 Instagram followers.
Oh,
Jimmy, I
no,
don't want to
no,
worry you,
someone's
but I think
unfollowed us.
somebody just ran
need-
out with your till
No,
in the
someone-
background.
needs 31.
Someone, it's all card transactions here. You can't
I saw somebody through the window robbing your tap room, mate. You want to get out there quick?
He needs 30 more. He's at 9,970.
Owen looked
No,
back.
someone
Somebody
someone
reacted.
unfollowed us. Funny enough, They're probably been watching this. We need 31, and we're at 10,000.
No,
Well,
you need 30 because I've just followed you.
Oh, okay.
Ah, well done. Why weren't you following me before when we were on your podcast?
Moving swiftly on.
I'd just like to point out, Jimmy, that
So let's wrap up then.
so there's 3 guys who do this podcast with me. There's Tricky, there's Andy, and there's Owen. And I don't follow any of them on any social media platform. So feel
Don't
happy.
worry, Jimmy. He's just a cunt.
He's off the grid. This is off the grid.
So thank you very much.
Don't be offended.
Thanks for coming
Thank
on.
you.
We really do appreciate it. And to be fair, it's
No
given me a good insight into how to change some of my brewing habits to
Very cool.
fit more what it is that the commercial boys are doing, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So, we're at 26. So you're getting followed by everyone now. You only need 26 more now, apparently.
Let's get him to 10,000.
Let's do it. So,
Right now.
Yeah.
we're
That'd be
out.
sweet.
Take care, and thanks very much for watching. His Insta is Unity Brewing Co. Luke. So yeah, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna stop streaming. I'm gonna put the links in, and we will catch you all soon.
Peace.
See you later.
Bye.
Right. Kill Audacity.
There we go.
Right, so we're just live on the internet. We can say whatever we want. It's not going to be recorded forever.
Oh, there you go.
We're getting there.
Bouncing.
We're getting there.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to post the link now. So
Need to
How many people you got actually paying attention on Facebook then?
on Facebook, 0, which is why I'm not going to be streaming there anymore.
what?
So the whole Facebook is the future thing has fallen on its ass. Then, is it?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's good you got me on, mate. Sorry about that.
Well, that's weird. we had loads of people last week.
Who did you have on last week?
Mate, people are a creature of
Oh,
habit.
we had
They're
about-
like, you're on,
I think
you're
we
on
had
fake
about 8
Who
YouTube.
was
They
the
don't like
guest
it.
last week?
People
we
don't
did
like
another one.
change, man.
Did
They
everyone?
don't like change.
They don't seem to. I'm not even going to post it on Facebook.
That's weird.
Oh.
You sure about that, Chris?
Yeah, I'm literally watching the live stats right now.
Our new member of taproom staff, her fella who's in, gave me fags and a lighter.
Happy days.
So, feel pretty
You
good
dirty
about
boy.
it. I know.
Was that
Only
fun?
when I'm
Did
drinking.
you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was fun, man.
It was a good laugh, right?
Yeah, totally.
I'm just going to save this WAV file.
Mate, if I can, drinking beer, talking about beer is literally my comfort zone. So
Yeah. I think
I've annoyed a lot of people doing just those two things.
Well, I think it's like welcome to the home of
Yeah, exactly.
comfort.
I've annoyed people by talking, Jimmy. So,
Welcome to our comfortable home.
exactly. We all surely know what the equation is.
Welcome to the home of.
Okay, pause it. Right, I'm killing Facebook. Bye.
Episode 4.